Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
This is the quote I'm going to do.
Okay.
Just because I think it's the funniest one to modify. It's podcasts. He smells like podcasts, and the smell gets stronger when he's in heat.
Oh, my God.
Right? Because I was looking at other options, and I was like, you got to remember, Sparky, no matter what they tell you, you can never have too much podcast. But that's not as funny as implying that Michael the Angel smells like podcasts, and it gets worse
When he's
the hornier he is.
It also, though, this is weirdly a movie lacking in punchline-y kind of humor, wouldn't you say?
I was looking up, I was trying to find as much context on this movie as I could. It was very hard. So I mostly was just reading reviews from the time because I was trying to find, like, where did this movie come from? How did it come into existence? Everything about it is strange. And there was one review, not that it's exclusive to this movie, but it really applies here, that described it as Nora Ephron's new wafer-thin comedy.
Oh.
Bam! Bam!
And there are things that I like about this movie, but the comedy itself is certainly wafer thin. Like the biggest joke in this movie is
It is. It's weird.
It's weird.
Is it? Do you think she was trying? Like, that's the thing. There's no context on this movie, and I feel like it mostly got forgotten.
Any.
But like, do you think it's like she's trying to do like kind of a 40s Bing Crosby,
I
you know what
think
I
so.
mean? Like that more gentle sort of, road trippy comedy that's just like pals, and then there's a weird supernatural element.
I'm giving her this. It feels entirely intentional. It's not like this movie is going for laughs it doesn't get, and it has a very different tone and vibe than any of her other films. So
also,
I do think,
have you guys watched Everything is Copy, the documentary on HBO?
I need to watch it. You're making me feel dumb and unprepared. But do they talk about
please
Michael?
don't. I wanted to be a good guest, so I did watch that, and I will say that during the montage when they're like, and she had a few clunkers along the way, they do show things like mixed nuts. They show Hanging Up, which she co-wrote with her sister, I want to say. Yeah. They show 0 clips of Michael. So Michael was not good enough to make the clunker montage,
but
and
this
Everything
is
is
what's fucking weird about this. Most of her career...
It was a hit. That's the thing.
Most of her career was this alternation between hit, flop, hit, flop, hit, flop. Like almost perfectly calibrated. Like she makes a perfect Nora Ephron rom-com, then she makes a movie that's a little caustic, that one flops, and she goes back to the well. Like whatever it is. This is the weird one in the middle.
Right.
Where it's a big hit and it has no reputation.
And not remembered. Right.
Bad reviews, no cultural tale. It made almost $100 million.
Was that just Pulp Fiction runoff, you think?
Okay, this is the context we have to talk about here, because I don't think we've ever talked about Johnny Travs on this show, have we?
Wow.
I am looking through his filmography to think of when he would have crossed paths with us. There's so much to talk about with Johnny Travs.
Exactly.
Like,
so I think that's our context for this episode, because Johnny T has not come up.
Introduce the podcast, introduce our guests while I comb through the filmography just to make sure we've never had it. I guess we haven't.
Right?
Wow.
Hello, everybody. This is a podcast entitled Blank Check with Griffin and David. I am Griffin.
I'm David.
David looks resigned as he scrolls through Travolta's IMDb page.
Scrolling through his IMDb page might make you look a little resigned. I'm sorry to say it.
There are some heavy sighs within there.
Yeah.
It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their career and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. Sometimes those checks clear, and sometimes they bounce. Baby, this is a mini-series on the films of Nora Ephron. It is called You've Got Podcast. And today we're talking about Michael, inexplicably one of her highest grossing films. And our guest today is doing such a great job, not only speaking before he was introduced, but also he was miming along with every part of the introduction. He rocked a baby.
I'm a listener.
Bouncing.
Oh, you have to do
sweet.
visual bits on Zoom. They're for us. That's just for us. Well, actually, it's being recorded, so it could be for everybody.
He's one of the best in the biz. A podcasting luminary.
But not for Luminary, famously.
Not for luminary.
No.
Famously.
Not yet.
Shut up.
Luminaries coming up.
Yeah.
Everyone has a price.
They're going to come a-knocking.
You know him from Good Christian Fun and Inside Voices and Gilmore Guys and Maisel Goys.
Yeah, that's right.
Nailed it. Kevin T. Porter, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, guys, thank you so much for having me. What a fun time.
The great Kevin T. Porter. I almost said
Tevin Key Quarter.
Tevin Key Quarter.
That's absolutely fine.
Now, here's a fun fact. You and I had followed each other on Twitter and had been friendly. We finally, I feel like, broke the threshold and became friends like a week before the pandemic hit.
COVID Eve, I would say. Yes. It was like the last time I was in New York, which was beginning of March, and Griffin was so nice to come on Inside Voices, and we met up and had a nice time and had a nice little walk afterwards. And then 2 weeks later, everything ended forever.
Right.
But it felt like a nice last hurrah.
It was a really nice time. You literally flew out of New York on March 11th, March 12th.
Well, I traveled a lot on the East Coast during that time, unfortunately. So I was in New York, went to Philly, came back to New York, went down to Washington, D.C., then flew out of there on March 9th, and then came back to Los Angeles. So I could have, should have maybe had something. I did not, thankfully.
You got very lucky.
You got mail and I got very lucky.
Yeah. But then since then, we've been like talking more during this.
Yeah.
You've been a nice distant friend to have, socially distant friend to have. And it's exciting that we could get you on this episode. This felt like I was looking at the schedule and I was like, this feels like a good fit.
Oh, I'm so honored by it. I mean, this show has meant so much to me personally. I've listened to this show for a very long time. I'm a big fan. I hope you guys always feel flattered when like the guests you have on the show are actually listeners and are fans. I feel like that's kind of rare for a show. I feel like that happens a lot with Blank Check.
I deeply resent it.
You resent it? Oh, no.
I resent it.
Oh, my gosh.
I resent it. No, I'm kidding. I'm flattered.
Okay.
But I did your podcast, Good Christian Fun. Mm-hmm. And we talked about Left Behind, the Nicolas Cage remake of a biblical.
I've never seen that.
It's bad.
Yeah, is Cage in a lot of it, or is Cage kind of sprinkled in? Like, how much Cage?
Yes and no. He's a little bit like Bob Hoskins and Michael, where he's got a number of scenes, but they all take place with him sitting in the exact same chair.
Yeah, okay, right. So they were like, acting. Nick, it's a week of your life, and you won't have to do anything, but
Right. He's pretty much just in a cockpit the entire movie, and he only interacts with 3 other actors, except for one scene he has in the food court of an airport that is definitely JFK. Is so clearly JFK. They clearly shot in New York for real, and you know it because there's a little placard on his table that says, "Welcome to JFK, New York City."
Yeah. It was, I think it was Louisiana that they shot in for real.
Because Nicolas Cage lives in Louisiana, and I think he has some sort of tax break there. But the point is, was talking that movie with you on your show where you talk about films that are like explicitly Christian, like sort of faith-based films.
Faith-based entertainment, which I think is one of the more fascinating genres of film going right now. And well, this will be fun for all you box office mojo heads out there. There was one faith-based movie that the weekend right before or like right during lockdown did extraordinarily well.
I Still Believe did extraordinarily well, which is like almost a very damning box office statistic because it means like the Venn diagram overlap of people who want to see I Still Believe and also believe that COVID was fake news was kind of 1 for 1. I appreciate you saying that because I can't say it as a Jew.
You can say whatever you want, bud.
That's the one with
KJ Appa, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, well, I know Archie is in it.
Archie,
and he is playing What's His Pants, the singer who has this tragic story or whatever, right? What's his name?
Jeremy Camp is his name. His wife passed away.
Yes,
and Shania Twain is in the movie for some reason.
But also Britt Robertson, who had gone the Alison Lohman path where I'm like, is she just gone? Like,
I know.
Did Hollywood just rule, like, now that you can't play 16-year-olds anymore, you're out? Like, which is what happened to Alison Lohman.
Oh,
like,
man.
Alison Lohman played teenagers till she was like 28 or whatever. And then Hollywood was like, wait, the charade is over and you're out.
Just bringing up Alison Lohman's name. I mean, White Oleander, get at me.
I love Alison Lohman. She got a raw deal, But
Lohman,
I feel like Britt
Lohman
Robertson
married, was it Neville Dean or Taylor? She married one of the Crank guys. And the only movie she's appeared in the last 10 years are a couple cameos in their movies.
Neville Dean. She married Neville Dean. And she had kids, and maybe, she partly had this sort of like, what, fuck it, I'm going to semi-retire and, do something else.
The other one who falls into that category, although she has continued working, but how long has she been a teenager exactly? And I was looking this one up last night. Brittany Snow, who, like, by the time that she appears in Pitch Perfect, and I'm like, you're going on your second decade of playing a high school or college age person.
Right.
But the thing that blew my mind is she's 34 now.
Right, she's like my age, right.
She was 15 in American Dreams.
There's some of those, right.
Because
That's
of
like
how
the Keira Knightley thing where she's like technically 31 now. So she was like 15 in Love Actually or whatever it is.
Benedict like Beckham, she's really young. Like, you're right. Love Actually, she's playing older. Like, that's the weird thing with her. Right.
So it fucks with you. And
Claire
like
Danes.
When American Dreams was on TV, I was like, this must be a 27-year-old playing a 15-year-old. So by the time she gets to Pitch Perfect, I'm like, shouldn't she be 40 now? But in fact, she was still like 25.
Some people are like that.
Anyway, here's a man who has never aged, who has looked exactly the same his entire career. John Travolta. He's got that classic youthful glow.
Goodness gracious. I know.
I mean, John Travolta... No, go ahead, Kevin. But it's just like five comebacks.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I feel like I'm only that familiar with like post-Pulp stuff. I don't feel like I've really dove into like any of the Saturday Night Fever or Blow Up or any of like what the 70s was for Travolta.
Well, let's take a little tour through Travolta. I think we must.
Okay, so I'm gonna try. Griffin, can you let me at least get like and then but like, I'm gonna try and lay it out every peak and valley very quickly. Okay. Obviously, becomes well known on the TV show Welcome Back, Kotter. Right, that's his original. And then from there, you've got, right during Welcome Back, Kotter, he's in Carrie. He's in Saturday Night Fever. He's in Grease.
His hair looks normal. Okay.
And like, he's a good dancer. He's a good singer. He's like, kind of like he's an attractive guy. Like he's sort of a style icon. Like, I mean, right out of the gate, huge star. Oscar nomination while he's still on a sitcom.
But let's just say also incredibly fast transition from sitcom star to doing TV movies to legitimate movie star with an Oscar nomination. Like a rapid
It's
ascension.
all happening right at the same time. And then in the 80s, the rap on him is, he blew it. Even though he's in Blowout, which is a great movie.
But wasn't a hit.
That's seen as a bomb, right? And then he's in, actual bombs like Staying Alive and Two of a Kind and Perfect that are all kind of like well-known bombs, like early Razzie faves, right? Would you say, Griffin? Especially Staying Alive.
Absolutely. And also in 1978, he makes the straightest film of all time, Moment by Moment, where he and Lily Tomlin love each other.
Where he plays Strip Harrison.
Yes.
And also
looking at the filmography on Wikipedia, because there are so many multiple films that he's done per year, it looks like the Bruce Willis is making movies for Russians that you've never heard of phase of someone's career, because there's so many already.
Hey, Kevin, we will get there. It will get there and it'll hit us hard.
Terrific. I forgot to mention Urban Cowboy in the early, which was a huge movie of that.
That's 1980. So it's really after 1980 he hits a fallow period.
Exactly. And then and he barely makes movies, honestly. And then in 1989 he makes Look Who's Talking, and everyone is like, Travolta's back. The comeback, baby. He made it. He's back. People love it. It's a hit.
I appreciate you saying this because I feel like people talk about Pulp Fiction as if it rescued him from total obscurity. Now, maybe Look Who's Talking wasn't respected, but those first two movies are humongous hits.
They were huge, and it was definitely at the time seen as a comeback. But because he barely makes other stuff except for Look Who's Talking sequels, quickly I think it's another dip. It's like, no, all right, no, that I guess that didn't take.
Totally.
I'm looking at this filmography. How do you do Look Who's Talking in 89 and then Look Who's Talking 2 in 90?
Yeah.
What is
hey,
that?
Man.
production.
They were just like, they were just like, get to the, you need to give me a script in 3 days.
Gracious.
There better be another talking baby in it.
But like Wayne's World is like that too. Like you look at certain comedy sequels, they used to just be like, we cannot let this thing rest. Like Scary Movie 2 comes out 9 months after the first Scary Movie.
Wow.
It's crazy. But yes, he pumps out 3 Look Who's Talkings. The first 2 are big hits. The third one is not. He looks like he blew it again.
Exactly. All right. So then Pulp Fiction, obviously a huge comeback, Oscar nom. He's cool again. Like, who would have thought? And there's just that whole narrative of like Tarantino saw this in him and no one else, you know what I mean? It had to talk him into it and he didn't want to do it. And then he really has a run because it's like Get Shorty the next year. Michael and Phenomenon in 96, not well reviewed, but are both big box office hits.
He also has Broken Arrow in 96.
As is Broken Arrow, which was not as huge of a box office hit, but like did well. And then Face Off in 97, which obviously rules.
Surrounded by 2 kind of semi-flops, Mad City and She's So Lovely.
But like you can survive those if you're doing a hit a year.
If you have a Face Off, yes.
I would say in 98, I mean, gets great reviews for Primary Colors, which is not a hit, but is well received. Mm-hmm. And also for A Civil Action, which kind of gets ignored, but is a good, like, solid, cable kind of movie.
And was a solid on-base hit, not a blockbuster, but a hit.
And I would also like to point out A Civil Action is about my hometown.
Ooh.
Is it? Oh, yes, it is. I love that movie. I'm a huge fan of A Civil Action.
Much in the way that Mad Max Fury Road is about Ben's hometown.
Exactly.
And this movie is about my hometown, Heaven. As Randy sings in the opening credits.
And the place that only you will get to go, Kevin.
That's right. Out of the 5 of us.
But then he does his little pop in
Thin Red Line. And then in 99, honestly, General's Daughter was also a huge hit. Like people just, it's just that those movies are mostly forgotten because they're not very good, but they were hits.
Made $100 million.
Yes. And then 2000, Battlefield Earth, Lucky Numbers. It's like, that's when it starts. And then like Swordfish does okay. But like that movie, think of Travolta in Swordfish. That's where it's like, what does he think his screen image is? Right. Yeah. What is he doing to manage his appearance here? Because it's just getting weirder.
He's first billed in that movie, but that movie becomes a hit and helps Hugh Jackman and Halle Berry. It does not help him.
Everyone walks out of that being like, 1, Halle Berry, obviously. Right. And then I would say, 2 is like, that Jackman guy is, he's charming.
Right. Travolta's getting leapfrogged.
It's beyond that, though. The beat on Travolta, I think, walking out of Swordfish is like, what's going on with him? Like, what's this now? Right, because, like, you still have, like, I think Ladder 49 was sort of an on-base hit. Right?
Yeah.
Love Song for Bobby Long, not so much. Punisher Villain feels like a downgrade.
I was going to say, he's sort of playing support for younger movie stars. Like, I feel like Ladder 49 is a hit, but people are more like, Joaquin. And then him playing the Punisher villain in, like, the Artisan Marvel movie rather than like a big studio Marvel movie. Like all of this is weird. Basics a bomb, you said.
Be cool. Yeah, Basic is a bomb. Be cool. It's like you're going back to the Get Shorty 10 years later. And those 2 movies are fascinating because it's like if he wasn't called Chili Palmer and you didn't tell me this was a sequel to Get Shorty, you could watch both those movies and not really know they're related, right?
Totally.
Kevin's having some virtual background.
Well, I'm sorry. I just wanted a nice lady on screen as well.
Kevin changed his background to Margot Martindale. I also just want to say David's background is a photo of Michael standing in the field with the dog, but because of the positioning of his head, it looks like there are wings coming out of David's head. Like
which I kind of appreciate.
Yeah, I love
that's kind of fun. We should Be Cool. We could do that franchise, Griffin, for the Patreon.
Well, I mean, you know who else is in Be Cool is Robert Pastorelli.
Yes, his final film.
Michael.
His final movie. Travolta brought him back. But this is where things get kind of wild because you go, okay, Be Cool, 2005. He's trying to make a sequel to Get Shorty, but also evoke Pulp Fiction by bringing Uma into the fold. Everyone rejects it. You go, Travolta's cooked. He's never coming back, right?
And then you hear vroom, 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 vroom.
I was born to be wild.
And so we're calling Wild Hogs comeback number 3, right? Would you agree?
4
maybe. Like, yeah. And it's funny because it definitely is a comeback, because after that you have Hairspray, Bolt, Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3, Old Dogs, right? Like those are all like, big studio releases.
Wild Hogs and Hairspray both come out within
same year, right?
Like 6 months of each other, 4 months of each other, and both make hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right. And then I feel like it's just sort of at that point, it's like, obviously he's too old, and
right. Well, because then it's like,
he's showing up and you're From Paris, From Loves, and you're Savages, where you're like, what are you doing here?
That's the
Is
weird
he
thing.
good in Bolt? I never saw Bolt.
He's not particularly good in Bolt. I'm not a big fan of Bolt.
He's a dog.
I think Savages falls a little... John Travolta. I think Savages falls into the path he should have taken, which is like, take the smaller role, be more of a character actor. He's pretty good in Savages, and also, he's not wearing a wig.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
yes,
the hair stuff.
Right.
How much do you think the hair changed the trajectory of his career?
I think it's that thing where it's like, it's not just the hair, but he starts adjusting everything around it, where like his eyebrows are dyed and he's like pancaked in makeup, even when you see him like on talk show appearances, and he just stops looking like a human being.
He just did the thing where he couldn't accept it, but instead of just sort of like, I don't know, doing the Bruce Willis thing of like, all right, I'm mostly bald now, or, he's just like, I don't know. He like turned to ever more radical and confusing efforts to sort of like it only just gets, and I mean, his main issue is that he didn't do what he should have done, which is just like, I'm going to transition to being a full-time character actor, supporting roles.
Savages. I think Savages is not a great movie, but he's good in it, and that's the model of what he should have kept on doing.
Well, can I nominate like a low-key, maybe 5th comeback role?
It's not low-key, and I'm sure I know what you're about to say.
Robert Shapiro on People versus
OJ.
Yeah.
That's
another
where you're
window
in which he should have ran with the ball. Yeah.
It's exactly it, though. You're like, great. Here, he's figured it out. He's going to be like
nailed it.
Big popping characters, supporting roles, and you're going to be like, man, Travolta, what a wild man. Kind of do the Cage thing, right? And his former co-star.
Here are the titles of his immediate follow-ups to American Crime Story, what should have been his final comeback performance to take him into the final stage of his career. His follow-ups are I Am Wrath, Gotti, Speed Kills, Trading.
Well, it does. Griffin,
paint.
It does kill.
It is true. Speed does kill. Trading Paint, The Poison Rose, a Pitbull music video, and Fred Durst film The Fanatic, in which he plays the character Moose.
Which I got a FYC screener DVD for, and I was like, Travolta paid for me to get this, right? Like, it was one of those things where I'm like, oh, Jesus.
And he got the Razzie nomination. Speed does kill. I will say, I know someone who worked on a film with him around this time. And I asked about the hair, and it was a bald director, okay? Who worked with Travolta showing up on set or showing up for rehearsals with the wig. And he was like, I just knew the wig was so bad. Like, it's so low quality. He's got that one wig he uses all the time that looks like a Pomeranian. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yes, I do.
With the little fringe on the side. And he was like, Kevin has now changed his background to Moose from The Fanatic choking somebody.
Love that line.
Oh, it looks great.
Oh, gracious.
But he was like, my thing was, we will pay from the budget to get you a better wig. We will get you a wig that suits your character more. We understand it if you don't want to be bald. And he wouldn't acknowledge the conversation. Like, it was like, my one goal was trying to get him to agree to, can we make you a good character wig? And he kept on saying, like, I don't know what we're talking about. This is my real hair.
Right. So it's just like a locked room and there's just no way inside or something. Right. Like he's barricaded it and it's just like, right.
There is one aspect to his career we have not touched upon, which is his musical output. He did put out a Christmas album with Olivia Newton-John in 2012 called This Christmas. And it's him and Olivia Newton-John from Grease fame back together again doing Baby It's Cold Outside, This Christmas, Deck the Halls. And there's a pretty wild music video for at least one of those songs.
I remember that video. It's incredible. The other video I suggest people watch, of course, in this period of time, John Travolta makes my favorite cursed film, Old Dogs, which is currently my Zoom background.
Yeah.
And there's a music video for that. He does a cover of Bobby Brown's Every Little Step with his daughter, Ella Blue Travolta, and that video is absurd.
Wait, is Old Dogs that was supposed to be rated R and then it was recut to PG?
There are many rumors about what went wrong with Old Dogs, and none of them fully make sense, but all of them kind of make sense.
Hogs and Dogs, man. You should have gone on that lane.
It was the reteam. He was supposed to do Wild Hogs 2 after Old Dogs, and Old Dogs was such a disaster they canceled Wild Hogs 2. But there's one other element of Travolta we have not talked about here, which is his faith on subject with this film, that he was for so long Hollywood's second most prominent Scientologist. He and Cruise were like the two pillars. And despite Cruise having like a rockier period of like just real turmoil, he has been able to sort of stabilize more, whereas Travolta never really recovers. And everything that's weird about him now does feel like that. Oh, he's in a Scientology bubble.
Do you think that's because Travolta made a film explicitly inflected by Scientology, like Battlefield Earth, and Cruise never really did one?
I think that's part of it. I think Cruise was for a very long time very savvy about not bringing his religion to the forefront. And then it was that one disastrous War of the Worlds press tour where it kept on coming up, where the videos leaked out, where he called Matt Lauer glib.
Glib, you're being glib, Matt.
Right. And like Travolta always kind of like was a little too horny for Scientology on Maine. You know?
Yes.
Right.
And Nick Kroll has a bit I've seen him do where he talks about like, it's crazy. You look at Tom Cruise and he talks about how like Scientology helped him unlock himself and he is the most high functioning person in the world. And then you look at John Travolta.
It's so weird with Travolta because I feel like you do always kind of have to talk around so much like innuendo with him. Like, and it's not like I know things that I can't reveal. It's more just like there's so many different kinds of innuendo with him. Like you definitely hear that he's kind of a weird guy to work with, but then also he's worked with like a lot of great directors. Yes. Many of whom have employed him multiple times. It's not like, you know, he's one and done with these people. Like he works with Nora Ephron again.
I will say this about people I know who have worked with him. Consummate professional. Like what I have heard is that guy, he comes on set, he treats everyone so nicely, he works so hard, you understand why he's a movie star.
Which is what you hear about Cruise as well. Is that he's very nice to everybody.
Cruise is like a politician. Like, I mean, Cruise, that guy feels like an app. No, I mean, I've interacted. I mean, he is like an A-list politician type where it's like, you just feel like you could say anything to him and it would just bounce off of him and he'd smile at you and ask you a question that made you feel like included or whatever. But Travolta, it makes sense because he's been in the biz his whole life, basically his whole adult life. He's a dancer and singer, which requires a lot of professionalism. Like, you know, that requires you being able to like practice and work and hit your marks and all that. And I feel like he does have an eye for scripts, but then you do hear the stuff like the Pulp Fiction thing where he's like, well, I can't do that because he takes heroin and he has to be talked into it. Whereas like you'd think anyone would read that script and be like, he wants me for this. I'm in. Like, this is a good script. Like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
It's also one of those things where like so many movie stars, when they're in their crappiest films, their I Am Wraths, their Trading Paints, their Speed Killses, when they're doing press for them, you're like, God, this is like gun to their head. They're clearly embarrassed about this movie. They're lying through their teeth. And every time Travolta promotes a movie, I'm like, I believe he thinks this is the best film he's been in.
Right. Well, it's just interesting. This movie is very, very interesting in the Travolta arc. It's basically...
How many Nora movies have you guys recorded thus far, by the way?
We've recorded everything up until this point. We've done this, yes.
Oh, chronological. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for producer Ben, have we thrown out the name Ben and Women Can't Be Friends?
Oh, fuck.
No, we have not, and I love that.
We haven't.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
That might be the winner, Kevin.
Damn.
Hey, terrific. Happy to help the team.
It was either that or Lucky Numbends.
Ooh, it's neck and neck between the two. I can feel it already.
It's going to be a squeaker.
I mean, I'm looking. This is all right. Okay, it's not exactly halfway in his career because he's made way more movies on the back half of his career because he makes so much shit now. But don't you? I'm right?
In terms of years, this is really a midpoint.
And it's like he's still being used in this movie as a sex symbol, but he is the more older, broad kind of John Travolta, who's kind of stocky looking now, not like the live, young, fit John Travolta.
Well, this is weirdly him playing against type by stretching to play what Travolta becomes 10 years later, if that makes sense.
Well, and it is interesting to think of him as as an object of desire, sexuality in the movie.
Yeah.
And especially maybe like the era that he comes from. And you do wonder how much of that is informed by like, oh yeah, back when Nora Ephron was growing up, like kind of weird looking guys were the sex symbols and kind of like thicker guys and people with, more than 2% body fat. So you do wonder if that's part of the calculation.
I was trying to like frame this in my head, but the scene where he appears for the first time and you see him shirtless and his boxers walk through the kitchen.
Right.
He's really doughy in that. And I accepted it because that's what Travolta kind of looks like now.
Right.
But then I realized he probably gained weight for this role. Like he was more lithe in the films before and after this. He always was a slightly stockier guy. He was never a rail thin guy. But like, I think he gained a little weight for this. I think they specifically wanted the reveal of, look at it, this guy's kind of a slob, Like he was sort of pushing himself out of the sex symbol zone, even though everyone wants to fuck Michael. Part of the joke of this movie is he looks like kind of shitty.
Well, I thought he was already kind of looking like that by Pulp already. So I feel like Pulp was almost him announcing himself as like, oh, don't worry, I can look like shit now and it's fine. So I feel like Michael's an extension of that in some ways.
I will say, I'm mainly thinking of Pulp Fiction where there's like, they have to strip down. Remember him and Sam Jackson and they get sprayed or whatever. He has the same basic build. He had the big
build. Fair enough.
Right.
I always think about my mom dislikes John Travolta, would never want to go see John Travolta movies. And whenever I was like, that movie looks good, she'd be like, I don't like John Travolta. He's so bovine.
Oh my God.
That is a tough beat.
I know, right?
On fucking Travolta, man. That is tough.
Doesn't he actually play a cow in a movie, though?
And he fights a cow in this movie.
First cow, it just came out.
He fights a cow in this movie.
No, that cow, the animated cow movie.
No, he's not in Home on the Range, if that's what you're asking.
Doesn't he just like look like that cow?
Yes.
Even worse.
It's not even, I want to make it clear.
No, it's like a meme.
I'm not making a size joke here. There's something about his face that is weirdly cow-like to me.
Yeah, I think it might be his lips, maybe. His lips have always been very big.
This is bordering on, I feel bad, but I'm also just not getting over what a brutal hit Bovine is.
Oh, my mom bodied John Travolta. She folded him like laundry.
No one says that. It's not like she said like, oh, he's ugly or he's, like.
No, I was like
she
7
had
or
such
8.
a specific word.
That was her explanation for like not taking us to go see Michael. I remember wanting to see this movie and she was like, I can't stand him. He's so bovine.
I'm realizing the movie I was thinking of was called Barnyard, and Otis the cow is in fact voiced by Kevin James. The cast also includes Courtney Cox, Sam Elliott, and Danny Glover.
Yeah, and that film won Best Picture.
IMDb.
That's awesome. It won Best Picture. We all remember that.
Barnyard, the original Party Animals.
Brokeback Mountain. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was more like Barnback Mountain.
Terrific.
I don't know. David?
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Despite being largely home-ridden these days, still practicing social distancing protocol and largely self-quarantining out of fear of this country rushing to reopen for the sake of throwing people into the furnace so that large businesses don't collapse because our government doesn't care about us.
Uh-huh.
I keep on losing things around the house. I'm misplacing everything these days.
That's really funny. Really?
Yeah. And it's all the more frustrating when I go, I haven't seen my credit. There's a credit card. The one credit card I use, the credit card, my debit card linked to my checking account because I'm afraid of money, I have not seen in 3 weeks now. I am only making transactions through websites that already have my credit card information saved.
That's unfortunate.
And I don't want to order a new one because I know it's somewhere in my home. And I can't find it. It seems like I'm losing everything these days, except for weight.
Oh, you're putting on a few pounds?
The quarantine 15, I think they call it.
The quarantine 15. Okay. Well, so if you're looking to maybe get in shape and I don't know, maybe tighten up your mental focus a little bit, right? You know, like try and, you know, help yourself organize your house and your life like in a way
unnecessary. My brain's been operating perfectly during quarantine,
I'm so sorry.
But maybe this will be of help to other people.
Well, Noom, look, I'm just saying it's a great app for, say, if you want to try and stick to a healthier lifestyle, right? Like, you know, fit into their favorite pair of jeans again, something like that. But it's good for all kinds of self-care stuff, okay?
Right.
It's going to
teach
cleaning
up your apartment enough that you can actually find your credit card again.
Exactly. It's going to teach you the psychology behind the decisions you make and then help you keep track of everything. So workouts or steps or your diet or some healthy recipes. And you can even talk to some personally assigned goal specialists and a community of other Noomers so you can have all the support you need to empower your change. Okay? There's all kinds of support you can get from Noom. So, you know, if you're looking for just like physical stuff, psychological stuff, social stuff. You want to log your food, maybe. That's what I've used it for. Or you just want to make some changes in your lifestyle. It's a habit-changing solution that's going to help you learn a new relationship with food, say, through personalized courses.
We're living in wild, structureless times, David.
True.
You know, we need to find ways to keep ourselves on track, whatever that it may be.
It's not a diet. It's a healthy and easy to stick to way of life. Okay. Doesn't tell you what to do and what not to do. It teaches you how to look inside your own mind.
I hate people telling me what to do. I hate people telling me what to do.
Right. And make better decisions for yourself.
Yes.
You can chat with your goal specialist and your community to get and give help to people going through the same things. Now, listen, I'm going to call to action.
And you say goal specialist and I go, ugh, why would I need to talk to Pele? No, not that type of goal specialist.
Oh!
People who can help you achieve what you need to return structure and productivity to your life.
Great Pele shout out. I had no idea you knew about the greatest soccer player of all time. All right.
Wait, listen. How do you know about the greatest soccer player of all time?
You don't have to change it all in one day. Small steps make big progress. Sign up for your trial today at noom.com/check. What do you have to lose? Visit noom.com/check to start your trial today. That's noom.com/check.
Go!
Now, with Nora Ephron context, I know there's so little to go on for this specific movie, but like, what's our take on her thus far? Because I'll say for me, I've seen The Big Boys. I've seen Sleepless in Seattle, When Harry Met Sally, You've Got Mail. I did watch Julie and Julia for the first time ever because it was on Netflix, and I watched that a couple nights ago just to kind of get a kind of a more clear vision of who she is and what she's about. But it does seem like, apart from those, that her career is very spotty.
Okay, her first movie rules, which we discovered.
Silkwood?
It does.
Her first film she directed, This Is My Life.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Which is about a single mother stand-up starring Marge Simpson. That one rules. But it does feel like there's this thing because she started as a humorist and a lot of her pieces were more caustic and had a harder edge to them, that she will try to make films with that sort of sense of humor and the public rejects them. And then she goes back to her souffle movies and she kind of does that better than anyone else. Yeah. I do think watching these movies has made me appreciate her more as a technical filmmaker because it is so easy to focus on her writing because her voice is so specific and her voice was so specific as a screenwriter before she even was directing films. But like, I think this is a fairly well-directed movie. Like I like the aesthetics of Michael a lot.
There's one scene in terms of like I generally agree with both of you, but I do think there's one scene early on in the movie where the three of them are on the road and there's like these very strange cuts to the exterior of the car and very loud blaring country music and not one of Andie MacDowell's songs. It's when they're
explaining the history of Sparky, the dog, right?
That's the one. That was like, whoa, what is going on? But I will say, like, from the documentary, and not to make this more about me in any way, but like I was so struck by parallels to Amy Sherman Palladino for some of this stuff in terms of like a very kind of like brash, unapologetic woman who idolizes Dorothy Parker and cares more about, the work than people's feelings, and people like going on record in the documentary like, yeah, she was pretty mean, and she like softened out over time and with age and stuff. But I was struck by that in terms of like some of the similarities with female actors.
When the darker stuff comes into her career, it is honest. Like, it is a reflection of her personality. It's part of what's there for her. And I feel like she kept on trying to find the way to make that connect with an audience, and it didn't. And then this movie is, like, square in the middle between everything she does.
Right.
Yes.
While not being wildly successful at any of those things.
Right. But not a total failure, but definitely it kind of just, like, lands weird, this movie. I don't know how else to put it, right? Would you agree with that?
I mean, look,
is this a rewrite of someone else's script? Because there's four names on it.
This is the other weird thing about her. Most of her films are that. Like, despite the fact that she gets her film career started by, like, adapting her own novel, doing When Harry Met Sally, which is, like, Rob Reiner hiring her off of his premise. Silkwood, which is an adaptation, Most of her films that she directs she takes a script from someone else and like Nora-izes it. So even Sleepless in Seattle was like that, was developed by two other writers before she comes on and makes it her own. Michael's like that too. She usually comes on with her sister, Delia Ephron, who I realized in a previous episode I erroneously said was an original writer for SNL because she was part of that scene and she's in all those books about SNL. She dated Michael O'Donoghue for a long time, but she was part of like the edgy 70s comedy scene, the Groundlings and all of that sort of shit. But her and her sister come on and like take a pass at. So I don't know where this script comes from, but I presume it was not incubated by them, that it was the first two writers who were credited, and then her and Delia came on and rewrote it. It's made by Turner Pictures in the brief period of time where Ted Turner was like fully financing his own movies and then having New Line release them.
The Megan Ellison of his time.
Yes, but like most of what he made at this time was like Gettysburg.
Right. Because that was
like Cats Don't
those were
Dance.
His interests. Right.
Like the Turner
I like
movies.
Cats Don't Dance. I thought that movie's terrific.
They don't dance though.
Conclusively. And we needed that movie to teach us that. But this movie is like a weird sort of like outlier in that, and it's the most successful one, and then Warner Brothers acquires Turner very shortly after and folds in, and like, so you're like, so did he read the script and love it?
Yeah.
Did Nora read the script and bring it to Turner? Like, I can't find any answers about how this movie comes to be, but it does feel like very specifically a 90s movie, like peak movie star, where if John Travolta wants to do it, it's getting greenlit.
That's like the most 90s thing about it, making over $100 million at the box office. Totally. Is like you could just slap from Sleepless in Seattle person and Travolta's in it. I'll see it. It's about a weird angel. I don't care.
Travolta was just in the pocket for like 4 years there, where people pretty much went to see anything he did, and having the poster be like John Travolta is Michael. Having the TV ads be like him at the bar dancing, like that's all people needed to see.
Also, the dog doesn't hurt either.
The dog
it certainly doesn't hurt. What?
I mean, obviously the dog is central to the movie, but the fact that, have you seen that demented poster that's just his Travolta's face, and then there's just the dog in the corner,
right? And then some feathers.
But like clearly they were just like, the dog needs to be somewhere. Like, I'm sorry, like, we're not putting this poster out.
But it's weird that the dog is like so centralized in the marketing campaign, and then the movie is about this dog that they use as a marketing hook. There's this weird meta element to how like forefronted the dog is in everything. But I remember, I remember this being a big movie where like As Good as It Gets, like Frasier, where it was just like the dog is all over the marketing. We're pushing the dog hard. We're pushing the relationship. He's an angel, but he's not a saint. I mean, that was the other thing. It was one of those like one sentence pitches in a way that was like,
I love it.
John Travolta is an archangel, but he's like, he drinks beer and he smokes cigarettes. He's a bad boy, which is like a fine premise. Yeah, but that's not really what the movie is.
No, and yeah, I turned this on expecting it to not be a road trip. One, expecting him to have a more romantic sort of part to play. Like obviously he is romantic in the movie. He's, as we say, in heat and smells like cookies, but like he explicitly has no part, and no part to play in like a love triangle or anything like that.
Well, and the billing is also, the billing's weird on this movie because it's like above the title, huge John Travolta, then William Hurt, Andie MacDowell, a rung down from him, and then the title Michael, and Bob Hoskins. So I was like, that's a weird billing block, and it's also weird for Andie MacDowell and William Hurt at this point in their careers to be playing sidekicks to John Travolta in a movie. And then I watched this movie and it's, Travolta's the sidekick. Like Andie MacDowell and William Hurt are absolutely the protagonists of the story.
And like, this is a time when Hurt is really at a career low, right? Would you say
he's hurting to really?
He's hurting
up.
For sure.
Yes. He's hurting. I mean, I feel like we talk about this on our Lost in Space episode. That movie's a couple years later.
Yes.
But like that's his whole 90s basically.
His leading man career is collapsing slowly. Yes.
Yeah, and they can't figure out what he's supposed to be now, right? Because he's like aged a little bit. He's still a handsome guy, but he kind of has like, how would you describe it? Like he has this sort of like boardroom feel. Like, he's always
hot? I can't tell if he's hot or not.
I mean, in like broadcast news, absolutely. Hot. I think this is the last time he's sort of conventionally hot in a movie. But he does have that thing. The older he gets, the more the asshole qualities come to the forefront. Mm-hmm. Like you look at broadcast news a decade earlier and it's like, okay, here's a guy who's secretly a piece of shit, but he's so charming that everyone falls for it. And then this movie is the opposite, where it's like, this guy is such an asshole, I don't believe anyone would fall for him. There is something so off-putting about him.
Unfortunately.
Right, 100%.
I don't get him. Also, the Andie MacDowell conversation, guys, I'm not sure about Andie MacDowell.
I've never been sure about her.
She is so weird.
This is right after 4 Weddings, right? Or it's 2 years later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you have Groundhog Day in between. That's the important step.
Wait, is Groundhog Day in between?
Yes.
Groundhog Day is 93.
That's
4
93.
Weddings and a Funeral is 94. Michael is 96.
Because 4 Weddings is the one that she's objectively bad in.
Haven't seen it. Only watched
4
the Hulu
Weddings
version.
is the weird thing about 4 Weddings is it's an explicitly good movie. It's basically like a genre-changingly good movie.
Agreed.
With Mr. Bean.
Classic rom-com. Mr. Bean's in it.
A side of beans.
Well, and you love the setting, David.
Wait, what's the setting?
David loves weddings, but that's weird because
I believe it's in. Is it in London?
Just have your fun. All right.
I am wondering how the bit is strained via Zoom.
Oh no, they do it.
To adjust.
I guess it tends to happen quicker. I feel like it tends to just sort of like happen.
Yeah.
My point about I grew up in Britain.
What?
Oh my god!
Wow. Oh, is
my point? Wow. Although actually, I thought on Efron we were doing the reverse bit where you knew I grew up in Britain.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I forgot about it too. No reason to apologize.
But wait, what would that bit be?
We can cut that out, right?
David, what would that bit be?
You know I grew up in Britain, but you forgot that for my first 9 years, I lived on the Upper West Side, Uptown Davy Sims.
That's the new bit. It's Uptown Davy Sims, and I keep forgetting it.
Oh, now that actually is news to me.
Yeah, that's
right. A lot of people forget that part.
So is she good?
But is she good? I just want to finish my 4 Weddings thought. It's like it's crazy how successful that movie is, considering that she is really bad in it.
Really bad.
That's
She's like
the universal opinion.
Bad. It's one of those bizarre films. It's like the opposite of Hairspray, where it's a great movie that somehow even overcomes the central bad performance. In a way where Hairspray, I think, is great other than Travolta being misguided. But like every time he's on screen, it sticks out, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like Four Weddings and a Funeral, you're watching scenes that hinge on the romantic chemistry between her and Hugh Grant. She is dropping the ball and the movie still works. That having been said, I think she's very good in Groundhog Day.
Yes, she's great in Groundhog Day.
Kevin
I feel
disagrees.
like there's another.
I don't know, guys.
I find her charming in this sort of Southern mode, which she's in here, but I just feel like this movie does not know what her character is.
Can we say what she is? Can we say what she is?
Oh, Miss Margaret Qualley's mommy?
Well, she is, but I was going to say.
That's true.
When you're talking about her specific charm, she's a bargain store Mary Steenburgen.
Bargain store. Bargain store.
God.
Could you at least say generic brand? Like bargain store feels
brand.
like a
Wait,
real.
Steenburgen's
She's second tier.
Is she a Southern belle as well? I feel like that's not Steenburgen. I feel like I don't think about that when I think of Steenburgen. Really?
Mary. Now I need to look up where Mary Steenburgen
Texas?
is.
Am I wrong about this?
You're probably right.
Arkansas.
I don't think about that. Oh, interesting.
She's an Arkansan. How do you Arkansas?
Arcanian.
I think of her sweet, but I don't think of her as Southern. That's so interesting.
She's generic. Andie MacDowell's generic brand. Mary Steenburgen. Whereas I think Steenburgen never misses, Andie MacDowell's really hit and miss.
She is very hit or miss. She definitely. I mean. I haven't seen. I mean, I think she's great in Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Which
Muppets from Space. We all love that one.
Perfect performance. I think she's great. Does she have an affair with Pepe in that movie?
I don't recall. It's been a few years.
Some human being, I think, is implied to have slept with Pepe the King Prawn in that film. I need to rewatch Muppets from Space.
But
only movie. What's that?
Kathy Griffin makes out with Pepe.
That's what it is. Kathy Griffin makes out with Pepe.
I know my Muppets.
Two redheads.
Wow, that really is life on the D list. You got to make out with Pepe.
I can't even make out with
Pepe's
Rolf.
I feel like I've only loved her
Magic Mike
XXL.
Yeah, she's great in that. I think she's fully great in that movie.
She's great in that. She's sort of doing a better version of. She tried that a few other times, like in Beauty Shop, Griffin's favorite movie.
My favorite.
Beauty Shop.
Beauty Shop does rule. That's accurate. Isn't she in the Footloose remake? Right.
She is.
Yes. She plays the Diane Wiest role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking because like Sex, Lies, and Videotape, she's great. I think she's pretty great in Green Card.
Yeah. She's got some good ones there. Who does she play in Shortcuts? I totally forget her being in Shortcuts.
I haven't seen Shortcuts since I was like a teenager.
Okay.
She plays Mrs. Shortcuts.
That's
the owner of a beauty shop, which
Josephine
was then a prequel to Beauty Shop.
it's a Beauty Shop prequel.
Hudson Hawk, lest we forget.
Yeah, right. Gee, her career's all over the place. Right, and then her first film is Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, in which she is fully dubbed by Glenn Close. Is that right?
What? Is that true?
Her performance, I believe, is fully dubbed in that movie because they didn't like her accent. Let me double check this.
She does have that Southern accent, so that's correct. I just didn't know it was Glenn Close.
Guys, Wikipedia says the dialogue of Andie MacDowell, who played Jane, was dubbed in post by Glenn Close. According to Hudson, this was due to MacDowell's Southern U.S. accent, which he did not want for the film, and that she was not, at the time, a trained actor.
That's crazy.
Her is all fucking over the place.
I feel like her voice is like a huge asset. Like
totally.
That's something she's bringing to the table. The accent and
Jane.
And as we found out in this movie, also her singing voice.
I think she's kind of charming in this.
Pumpkin.
I don't dislike her in this.
Cherry.
I don't dislike any of them in this.
Yeah.
I do think everyone's a little undercooked.
Sure.
That makes like everyone's roles, right? Like it's like
right.
I don't know if this movie was edited to death or something. It just feels like there's something missing from it.
I don't know what it is because I started watching it.
And it kind of jumps from plot to plot kind of rapidly, and then we'll just stop and sit in something that's only somewhat interesting.
Can we all agree? I'm sorry, Griffin.
No. What were you going to say, Kevin?
I was going to say, I would love if we could agree that the cut of Gene Stapleton dropping an egg into a frying pan to a funeral is an I think you should leave sketch.
Absolutely.
I think it is. It was
canonically.
I was very disappointed reading the cast list when I saw Gene Stapleton's name and for 5 minutes thought it was Gene Smart, but it wasn't. It's Edith. Man. I forgot.
She would also be good enough.
Yeah. What were you saying, David? I'm sorry.
I had a question about the egg thing. Because that's early in the movie. Obviously, Jean Stapleton's making them all breakfast, and she keeps asking what their eggs, should be yada yada yada, and they say over easy. She's clearly handing them scrambled eggs. They're not over easy eggs. Like it is a pile of yellow scrambled egg. And what is this? Just a fuck up? Like, did they decide over easy sounded funnier later? I couldn't get over it.
I cannot weigh in on this because I was covering my eyes this entire scene. No, I'm revolted.
I know.
Wait, do you not like eggs, Griffin?
I hate them. They're disgusting. They're the devil's food.
Oh my God. I was thinking in the shower this morning about how much I love eggs. True.
And if you ask me, all eggs are deviled eggs.
Oh my
They've
God.
all been smooched by Satan himself.
Very savage.
It is a weird moment. I was going to say, I started watching this movie and I was looking at the Wikipedia and I saw that it had 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I was like, this movie feels kind of charming. Like, I know this doesn't have a reputation for being great, but 30% is really low. And then you get to the end of the movie and you're like, nothing catastrophic has happened here, but it's very hard to say that this movie works.
Yeah, to the end, I'm like, what is this movie about?
Right.
It was hard to say anything about the movie.
I found it to be kind of a pleasant watch, but I can't really wrap my head around it.
But at the end of the first act, when it sort of finally has settled down, and when Michael says to Andie MacDowell, I'm going to want you to sing, and to William Hurt, I'm going to need you to apologize. And there's like a master plan in place that we don't really know about, right? And it's a road trip. I'm like, okay. I was like,
this movie's going to start zooming. I think this movie's set up. Yeah.
I think I'm on board. A bit of a slow start, but that's cool. And then, even though that is, basically what happens, it never felt like it gathered a lot of momentum. It's just, I don't know. They get to that pretty quickly, and then it's a lot of just space to fill.
No.
Right. And then also, I don't know if you guys felt this. I mean, jumping around, but I felt very disappointed when it became clear, the point of this movie is Michael was sent to Earth specifically and exclusively to make Andie MacDowell and William Hurt fall in love.
Yes, which is weird, I would say.
Which is weird. And I'm fine with the two of them ending up together, but it's weird that was his mission.
It's weird that he used his last, whatever miracle chip, right? His last Earth pass.
Yeah.
To get two fairly annoying people together who don't have a lot of chemistry and don't really have fully drawn characters.
It feels like a Rube Goldberg device too. Because if the idea is you guys need to fall in love, it's just just do the street running thing in Chicago and don't even deal with Iowa and the road and the twine and stuff.
Absolutely. Just turn your TV on, goddammit. Don't have a mouse run to a baseball bat and knock over a teacup.
Is this evidence of a script that was written and then rewritten? Is it it had this and then Nora came in and was like, I want it to be a road trip, and they go to the big ball of twine. Is that what happened?
I don't know. We can't find any answers. I mean, this is what
Why is this movie? Congress, release the files.
What is Nora's touch, though? What's her signature where it's there's this in this movie, all of her
newspaper.
Movies.
She loves journalism, right? She loves a newsroom, an editor, a writer, right?
Even if it's for the Daily Mirror. Is that what it's called?
Yes. I believe it's called the National Mirror.
The National Mirror.
Because the Daily Mirror is an English newspaper.
It's weird you know that, but okay.
That's very
I find it smashing. Simply smashing.
Also, just side note, Robert Pastorelli, for the first 20 minutes of this movie, I'm like, did Steven Van Zandt say no thanks to this?
Wow.
Is Steven Van Zandt a market correction to Robert Pastorelli?
Are we just bodying everyone in this movie?
No, I don't. I love Steven Van Zandt. I own guitar picks from Steven Van Zandt.
Little Steven. We do love Little Steven.
We love a gangster in Norway. We stand Lilyhammer.
We do love a Lilyhammer.
This is sort of Pastorelli's last great moment, right? I mean, he's
Pastorelli's last dance.
Right. I mean, because 4 years later, he gets mired in scandal. And 5 years after that, he kills himself. Not to be bleak here.
So sad.
Not to be bleak.
Treasure Planet. Eraser.
Right. But this is his last sort of window of he's coming off of what? He was on Suddenly Susan or Murphy Brown. He was on Murphy Brown.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then had his own sitcom for one season. It's interesting. I mean, he's a big part of this movie. This is what I thought this movie was going to be at the halfway point. I thought it was going to be these cynical journalists are in a car with Michael, accompanying him on his journey to solve whatever he was sent on Earth to do. And along the way, he changes them just by proximity. They start to fall in love, their hearts open up, and there's some big reveal at the end of what Michael was sent to do and the ultimate sacrifice he makes.
Yeah, instead, this functions as Lost, right? Where the end of Lost is like, the point was that you guys met and love each other now.
The point was you guys, which I don't like. It feels way too small. And I also just like, she's had such a bad run of relationships, and he is such an asshole that I'm not convinced this is an ultimate victory for the two of them to be together.
No, and especially, and this gets shaded in a different way when it is a woman directing it. But the kind of wild gender and sexual politics of ending your movie with a woman saying no 5 times and then saying yes, and it's a yes, is bananas, and I don't know how to unpack it.
And that's almost a Nora touch. Like, that feels like putting the key lime pie in Jack Nicholson's face in Heartburn, you know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, that feels like, when you're asking what the touch is, it's like, it's this weird combination of like bitter and sweet. It's this person who knows how to like make a souffle with some Tabasco sauce in it, you know?
Ooh, I like that.
You love a souffle, Griff.
Yeah, or a sour cream raisin pie, as they alluded to at some point in the movie.
Yeah, no thank you, by the way.
At her most successful, she was sort of the preeminent souffle filmmaker of her time. And then she tries to like expand out to these other things to varying levels of success. But this movie has this like really interesting, it's got this like autumnal color palette. It's all very brown, and the sky is usually just like dead white. And it's very much framed around these big open landscapes as they're just like driving through like the empty terrain of America. It has a very different look and feel to most studio comedies of the 90s. It
all feels very intentional, right? Like, no question.
Completely. And I think it looks good. I think all this is well done.
I do too. I think it's a nice, and there's like these nice little cinematic touches. I like the barn collapsing at the beginning, or the bank, whatever it is, you know. I like... I don't know, some of the stuff with his feet, and like you can feel the air moving around him, like the way that it tries to communicate that there's like something about this guy.
When they introduce him and you see the floorboards from the ceiling that he's stepping on and the dust coming from them,
which I wasn't even sure if that was supposed to be when they first get to the milk bottle motel or whatever it's called, and you see the floorboards creaking. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be reading that as like, is that a size joke where it's like, look how much they're creaking, here comes trouble, or so, or just
I think, I mean, because so much of this is this movie is, hey, you'll never expect an angel not to be ripped. You'll never expect an angel to smoke Marlboros. Yeah. You'll never expect an angel to fuck. Like all of those sort of subversions.
Yeah. Speaking of aesthetics, though, one man who was working overtime on this movie, Randy freaking Newman.
Okay. Kevin with a perfectly timed Zoom background change.
For the listener.
Just Kevin so we in the middle of that sentence. About.
I wouldn't have known otherwise.
I wouldn't have known. He's got a beautiful picture of Randy smiling, and he clicked it right as he said Randy Newman.
It's Randy at the Oscars, I think, right? That looks like an Oscar shot.
I think from this Randy most recent year. I like the Randy score here. Now, I have to admit, I'm just sort of like... This strain of Randy score tickles such a nostalgia spot for me just because of Toy Story. Like anything that feels like mid-90s Randy Newman is just immediately hitting the heartstrings for me.
He is like, and you do notice how much of like what I associate as like, oh, it's the Toy Story sound. It's just like, that's just Randy. That's Randy being Randy, man. And just like the kind of very melodically sophisticated Americana stuff. And he was doing On the Natural and stuff too. Right. But he's like so heartfelt about it.
There is something.
It does raise the question, though, with Randy, like who his influences are. Like, honestly, who are his guys?
Oh boy.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We got. Kevin obviously came to play.
Okay. I'm trying to be a good guest.
Listeners, when Kevin said who are his guys, and that. I gotta say, he played that tee up real straight, real dry.
Which
I did not think he was setting up
a funny thing we like to say on the show. Like, on its own, funny enough.
Absolutely. But at the moment he said, it makes you wonder, click, who are his guys? He activated a photo of Marc Maron and Randy Newman together, I assume at the Cat Ranch. And Randy's eyes are looking in two wildly different directions.
I know. Right. I don't want to be mean. I hope he's okay.
He looks great.
Or whatever that song is.
I don't like Putin. He's trying to hack our votes. I do think, though, all this is like part and parcel. I keep on using that term here, but is like this weird sort of approach to Americana this movie has. Like, I kept on thinking, like, there's some painter this movie looks like. Like, it's almost got like the color palette of like American Gothic, you know? And you have Randy doing his sort of like weird, like postmodern neo-Americana thing. And it is so much like this movie is driving through parts of the country that are never in movies.
Yeah.
I mean,
also,
literally
like,
just the landscapes.
And I think about like, it feels like Efron wants us to be like really beholding the natural beauty of like, it's kind of funny, but isn't the challenge or whatever he says? What is it? Battle, he says to like the bowl. Is that supposed to be like, this is real America? It's just like a kind of out of his mind guy in the middle of a field running at a bowl. And like Randy's going ham on the score and it's very gorgeous and it's supposed to be like building up to this epic conclusion. It was confusing. It was confusing to watch.
But that was another moment where I was like, okay, so is this what this movie is? This is where you reveal that he has visited Earth, like whatever he says, 28 times. But this is his last time.
There's some time limit, or there's some finite amount of visits
after this mission, whatever he was sent here to do, he has to go back permanently. He never comes to Earth again. So this road trip is him trying to get his last licks in. But then it feels like the sort of bucket list element of the movie, which could be really fun. Because you're like, what's on the bucket list of an angel who can't be hurt? You know? That stuff isn't really a through line that follows through. He just likes to put sugar on everything and fuck a bunch of women in front of their
shit was disgusting.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah. But he is smoking and drinking like it don't matter. So
that is true.
There's that.
But I want, like, I don't know. I want more incidents like the bullfighting. You get it. Dude, I mean, you're rocking a very Michael lifestyle.
Yeah. If I was an angel and I had only a little bit of time left, I would be doing the same kind of shit.
You'd buy a
just
carton.
sans sugar. And, well, you know what? It would be a sugar cube with LSD on it. Like that kind of stuff.
Oh, baby.
Right, you'd be a trippier angel. But I mean, like, I'm not a liturgical expert, but like Michael, the archangel, he's famous for doing battle, right? He like fights Satan. He's in the Book of Revelation. He's sort of like an action angel. So is the idea like, you know, the guy likes sugar, he likes fucking, but also like he's spoiling for a fight. Like he loves to throw down whenever he can.
Yeah,
right? I don't know. This movie has like stunts.
Swords. Yeah.
It has like a bar fight where like people are flipping and stuff.
Okay. The bit though of that he has invented stuff.
I like that.
Oh, it's standing in line or marriage.
Yeah, it's kind of good.
I think that's a funny bit. The standing in line joke is also just that's like a good Nora Ephron line where he's like, you should have seen it before. Everyone was just milling around.
Yeah.
Like,
and then people
funny.
say, "How standing in line for what?" And he says, "To get in," which is another good Nora joke.
The cut I watched that was on my iTunes rental, he does have a weird line where he says, "I'm Deep Throat." And they're like, "What do you mean, Michael?" And he's like, No, it was me. So here's what happened. And he explains it for like 25 minutes.
This is a wild thing. We haven't talked about it all in this miniseries.
We haven't?
Oh, have we not?
was
no,
married
but let's
to Carl
establish
Bernstein,
it now. Yes.
Who obviously helped break the Watergate case.
Right. Their toxic marriage was the basis for heartburn.
Right. Mm-hmm. He cheated on her and they got divorced and she wrote a book about it and a movie was made about it. You know, obviously, right. Their relationship fell apart. And for the rest of her life, before the revelation that Mark Felt was Deep Throat, she would routinely at dinner parties, whatever, just be like, oh, it's Mark Felt. Just FYI. That's who Deep Throat
telling
is.
people.
And like, I don't think she said it in terms of like, I know because he told me. She was just like, I know because I lived with him and like, it's obvious.
She saw his initials. She saw his initials in his notes.
MF, which they always said stood for my friend. That was the Woodward Bernstein.
My friend.
She's like, yeah, my friend Mark Felt. That's who it stands for.
But she was like, Nora Ephron doesn't get enough credit for being the original Mr. Policeman. I gave you all the clues. Like, she was just telling us.
Ooh. She was telling us, but maybe it just felt, I mean, it's not like she wasn't the only person. Like, Mark Felt was considered a candidate for Deep Throat in the days of, you know, it's just fun. So maybe people were just like, well, that's her guess. But it is funny that she was just saying it partly as a fuck you to Carl Bernstein.
I also think that she wasn't saying it like it was a big announcement. So people assumed like that can't be real. If this was the truth, she would be making some grand proclamation. It would be an exclusive, you know, to some outlet. Instead, she was just like, oh, yeah, no, it's Mark Felt. Like she just kept saying it over and over again.
And I do love for like a certain, you know, part of culture and for that time period, the Bernstein-Ephron marriage is their like Britney K-Fed in terms of like it was short but red hot. It affected culture forever. It's tied to so many things, both of them equally accomplished in different ways.
Public. Like I was talking about heartburn with my sister and I was like, you don't understand, like the movie tames down the fact that this was like national headlines. Like it was like the guy who breaks Watergate cheats on one of America's most beloved humorists with the daughter of the prime minister. Like all three names involved were so
daughter
juicy.
Of James Callahan's, former British prime minister.
How do you know that?
Again, very weird. Very weird history.
And then the other crazy thing we haven't talked about is Nora then marries the man she's with until her death, Nicholas Pileggi.
Yep.
Who writes Wise Guys, the book that became Goodfellas.
Yeah, and he wrote Goodfellas with
Scorsese,
and he wrote, I believe he wrote Casino, right?
Correct. But Nora writes and does not direct a movie called My Blue Heaven, which is the sequel to Goodfellas.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
She writes a comedy with Rick Moranis and Steve Martin playing the Henry Hill character that is a studio comedy based off of Nicholas Pileggi's findings from Henry Hill once he moved into witness protection in the suburbs.
Oh, very strange.
And it's nebbishy Rick Moranis lives next door to former mob guy, played by Steve Martin with a flat top. I just think that's so bizarre. A thing we don't talk about is like, she writes a movie that is in all but name the sequel to Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Except in a different genre.
They didn't market it like that though, right?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Very strange.
Look up the poster for this movie, Kevin.
Oh, I'm looking at it.
It's an aggressive poster.
It's like, can you believe these two talking to each other?
Right, I guess he's a cop in it? Is he the...
yeah.
He's got a gun on the poster.
And it's called My Blue Heaven because blue heavens matter.
Blue heavens do matter. That's very
right.
true. It's very, very true.
Okay. All right. Who's on the phone? Who's Zoom bombing us?
I don't know. Click accept, David.
Click.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Hello, sir.
I'm investigating a story. I'm trying to find out whether it's true or not.
Okay. Can you tell me who you are, who you're investigating it for?
You don't recognize me.
I'm so sorry. I'm bad with faces on the old Zoom.
I'm disgraced reporter Frank Quinlan from the movie Michael.
Oh, right. You're right. The William Hurt's character. Yes.
You don't recognize that I sound exactly like William Hurt?
No, I get it now. It's just you're such a sensational character. I would never dream that you would, come onto Blank Check.
I love you, wife.
Through the Planet Core.
Everything I say sounds like the final words being croaked out of a man whose windpipe is being stepped on.
So what's up, bud?
I got a hot lead. As you know, very often in my career, I work for this tabloid rag, investigating stories, conspiracies, Santa Claus being discovered, the existence of an angel or not, and I'm trying to crack open a hot new story.
Right.
Truth versus Hollywood.
Oh, I
think
see.
I can be the first one to get to this story, to compare the difference between the real life events that inspired the movie and the Hollywood version of it. This is gonna save my career. This hot story.
Right. Right. Because you're always curious when you see a movie based on a true story if it's as real as the story they've based it on. Unfortunately, there's already a podcast for that. It comes from Audio Boom, and it's called Truth versus Hollywood, and it's hosted by film lovers David Shen and Joanna Robinson. Okay, so you might be out of luck.
You're telling me there's already an Audio Boom podcast?
Yeah. David and Joanna, they're doing a deep dive into well-known films, discussing how similar they are to the actual story, interviewing experts and witnesses and people who were involved at the time.
God damn it, that was going to be my angle. Well, wait a second. Maybe there's some room for me to carve out my own niche here. I mean, I was going to hypothetically do a deep dive into movies like The Social Network, Munich, and American Gangster.
I think all of those might get covered on Truth versus Hollywood. I'm sorry. It's an original podcast releasing new episodes every Friday. And it's available.
That was going to be my day. I was going to release new episodes on Friday.
This really must stink for you. Yeah. It's on your favorite podcast app right now. And while you're listening, you can be sure to search and subscribe to Truth versus Hollywood in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your favorite podcast app.
Okay, let's talk about the setup for this movie, because we've talked around a lot of other stuff, but the setup for this movie is so weirdly complex. They work, Robert Pastorelli and William Hurt work for a sort of a World Weekly News, National Enquirer type paper that both covers, like a supermarket tabloid that both covers fake stories, like Santa Claus discovered living in North Pole. But also seems to do celebrity gossip and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be kind of like the British tabloid Hello. It's it's like a higher end, not like a supermarket tabloid that's just on like really cheap paper and is just gobbledygook.
But how would you know that?
A glossy, really kind of big and very photo heavy magazine that would be like 30% celebs, 30% like royal family, like right, like all that Princess Di and all that shit, and then 30% like nonsense.
So this paper is owned and run by Bob Hoskins, who seems to be like a billionaire.
Sure, he's a mogul of some sort.
Right. But they have very ritzy offices. They fly in the world's largest Christmas tree. This seems to be a very, very popular publication, but not respected. And William Hurt used to be a respected journalist, and now he's stuck here with his best friend, Robert Pastorelli. They're partners.
Now he's slumming it. But the weirdest thing, and the thing that is hardest to figure out, and like I didn't even grasp early, is that the dog is like central to the editorial mission of this whole publication.
Without the dog, the paper absolutely falls apart.
The dog is not only the mascot, but it's like they have this wall of photos that's like the dog meeting Queen Elizabeth and the Dalai Lama and the Pope and shit.
And I saw that, and initially I was just like, yeah, it's celebrity. And then like they're saying like, you need that dog, and I'm like,
yeah,
they need the dog.
Yes, David, they need the dog.
I love the dog.
The dog is the central conflict of the movie. And let me explain it as concisely as I possibly can. It's a stray dog who is very taken with Robert Pastorelli, who's usually a grump, but had a dog like this as a child, and the dog senses that on him. The dog then starts getting photographed with all these celebrities, which is key to the popularity of the paper. So the dog is integral, but the dog only listens to Pastorelli. So Pastorelli has job security as long as the dog is still alive. But Bob Hoskins doesn't want to keep Pastorelli on staff. So he hires Andie MacDowell, who is a dog trainer, to pretend to be a journalist. And in the process,
to be an angel expert.
An angel expert.
That is not a thing.
But the thing is, 80 to 90% of what you're describing is laid out initially, right?
Right. And then I had to...
The last couple pieces get put in like an hour and 20 minutes into the movie. Like they then basically drop it until right near the end when Andie MacDowell's like, I'm not an angel expert. This is a whole ruse. We're trying to, it's like, like it's so complicated.
She says that she's a dog trainer in response in defense of her killing a dog on accident.
Right. And you have the one scene where she's saying goodbye to the dogs, but it's like he's meeting with, Hoskins is meeting with MacDowell, explaining to her what he wants, which isn't even really clear to the audience at that point. Meanwhile, Hurt and Pastorelli are getting the letter about the angel, or is it a phone call? They get the tip off on Michael.
They get a letter with a picture inside of it. Yes.
So then they storm Hoskins' office to be like, we found an angel. You have to let us go down there. And that's the moment where Hoskins says, take this angel expert with you. So she's had no prep time to fake this personality. She goes like, oh, I'm hired. She finds out she's hired and finds out what ruse she's going to have to sell at the same moment.
This is the thing that makes no sense. She says it like she barely understands what she's supposed to be pretending to be, right? Like she's like an angel expert. What? And Pastorelli and Hurt, supposedly journalists, are just like, I guess we got saddled with this angel expert who's definitely an expert on angels and knows everything about angels. Like, I guess there's no further questions on this one. Three people definitely need to do this.
Interviewing at this moment, right when you stormed through and said, I got a letter about an angel.
Right. It's bizarre and it doesn't make sense.
So then the movie becomes Pastorelli and Hurt, who sense that their careers are in danger. Even though Hurt says to him, as long as you got the dog, you're safe. The dog sells papers. Decide to go find Michael because they think this story is so big it will solidify their standing within the paper. MacDowell is with them, supposedly as an expert, but secretly to try to train Sparky to respond to her instead so they can fire Pastorelli, who is a photographer. And also, why did they need to fire him? What's the problem here? Is it that he's costing too much money?
I think he just quits anyway.
They want control of the dog. The dog rules it all, okay? If you've got the dog, then you're in.
Yeah. You're still just making the dog inextricably tied to a different person.
Are dogs Nora Ephron's thing? Is there like a cute little doggy in Bewitched as well? I know You've Got Mail ends with the dog jumping on Hanks as he's smooching with Meg.
Yeah, but I don't think of her as dog heavy.
Okay.
Right. But there's also just like, there's no sort of real world equivalent for this where you're like, oh yes, that publication whose identity is tied to the dog being in photos with every famous person.
Yeah.
I'm just like racking my brain. I mean, this is again what made me think that she was inspired by like 40s Bing Crosby going my way, Bob, because it's like that's the kind of insanely specific Hollywoody kind of premise that I can buy in those kinds of movies where it's like, well, I mean, everybody loves Jim the Wonder Dog. Like, what are you gonna do? He's the talk of the town. But it's like it's the 90s. I don't think people are still like, I just got to get my fix of pics of a celebrity with that specific dog every month.
As we said, like tonally, the movie is not, it does not feel like a pastiche. It is very much of the 90s, but you have to think in terms of storytelling, that's the kind of vibe she was going for. And this weird, subtle, magically realist comedy, because then it's like they get to the Milk Bottle Motel, they meet
Edith Bunker. And then Michael comes in, upends all their expectations.
Michael, you're here! Boy, the way Glenn Miller played. Archangels, help me with Banks!
Which I will say, I thought it was weird for them to give her a 15-minute musical number in the middle of the film.
thought that was cool, because that's a throwback as well, like you were describing with the genre. Yes.
It is a throwback.
So she's in this, and then she's in You've Got Mail as well.
Oh, right.
So there's this weird, like, it's almost like a baton toss of like, she works with Rob Reiner on All in the Family. Yeah. Then he works with Nora on Harry Met Sally. Then she works with Nora on Michael and You've Got Mail.
Yeah. And then Michael kills her.
And then Michael, her first coughing fit is something I would like to discuss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too, because so the movie has this, honestly, when the movie starts, you're like, this is a four-hander. This is going to be Travolta, McDowell, Hurt, and Stapleton. Like, it just sort of feels like they're like, get ready, because Stapleton's going to be all over this thing.
They might leave Pastorelli behind. Stapleton
Pastorelli might have to go.
Yeah.
But then she has this coughing fit, and I was like, oh, I get the joke's going to be that she dies like the second they meet her.
Yes.
And then she says, no, I'm contemplating my death, right? Is that what she says? It's something like that.
Mm-hmm. It's this wild physical bit, though, where it looks like she's hamming it up, but she's not. But she kind of is, because she's being dramatic about it and like slouched over until they ask her what's wrong. And yeah, it was a very strange energy.
But then, I don't know, 10 minutes later, if that?
Yeah.
The same thing happens to her and she dies.
She cracks an egg and she dies. Yeah.
It's not even, they don't even do a rule of 3. It's 2.
No, it's 2. And then hard cut from egg to funeral.
That was the hardest I've laughed since lockdown started. I'll be honest.
I will say this. I think a hard cut to a funeral is usually going to work. Like, that's usually pretty funny, right? Like, I mean, like, especially if it's like, it should be like outside, maybe the coffin lowering, right? Like, that's always a good cut. Like, I think of like Grimes, right? Yeah. In The Simpsons, when he's like, you know, I can touch these exposed power wires. I'm Homer Simpson. Cut to his funeral. Just like the harder the cut, the better.
And they even put a cherry on top of the cut, which is Andie MacDowell sobbing hysterically, and William Hurt says, "You knew her for like 3 hours."
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
That's the thing, is like they stick around town for the
funeral. Yeah,
for the ceremony of it all, and then the movie does just become like, okay, so I guess come back to, okay, did they want to come back to Chicago so they could take a picture of him in Chicago? Was that I was very confused about why they need to be in Chicago.
They want him to meet Bob Hoskins, but also he refuses to have his photo taken before they get to Chicago, but he doesn't like planes and he needs more time, so they have to drive. They are now in a car, the 4 of them, the 4 amigos and Sparky the dog, driving to Chicago.
It feels Rain Man-y, though, and its conceit of like, here's this man who's like weird, and we have to like bend to all his, not weird, I'm sorry, I don't mean that offensively, but just like,
so many.
No, but in this case, it applies. It is like, the premise is, what if there's a weird guy on the road trip with you?
Yeah.
And because of the weird guy, you have to drive. Like Rain Man is that, Midnight Run is that, right? Like the specific subgenre of like, this guy is weird and won't get on a plane for some reason.
He makes everything more complicated.
I would like us to reimagine all the scenes in this movie with Dustin Hoffman as Rain Man, smelling like cookies and taking women back to his hotel room. And
Can I say, I fundamentally think Travolta is bad casting for this movie.
Okay. We're talking about it.
I think we have to. I think he is weird in all of the wrong ways for this role. And even you just saying Dustin Hoffman right now, I'm like, that would work better for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think Travolta is a weird combination of like the ways in which he's weird feel like he's not aware. He's not self-aware. And in this pocket, especially now that he's like back to being a major movie star, he's like always a little too concerned with being charming and sweet.
Yeah. Well, and the charming sweet stuff I do find comes off as strange.
Very.
Right, he seems weird.
Yeah, when he's like dancing in the field and doing his stuff and like dancing with the ladies on the dance floor, I'm like, no.
Right, and
no,
you're like, this
Papa.
probably needs to be a movie star who was known for being a charming cad. Like it needs to be Hoffman or Bill Murray or Jack Nicholson. You know?
Murray, I could see. Obviously Nicholson. I mean, Nicholson, it would almost be too cute because he like plays a devil, like like you know. Now it's like, well, what if there was an angel? And they're like, no, wait up, it's Jack Nicholson.
Murray was the one I kept thinking of, especially in this time period.
Be a very different movie.
Very different movie.
Because Murray is not a guy. Not that he's not romantically intriguing, but he's not like a sex appeal guy, right? Like. In the same way?
No, but don't you also
He's
think
not horny, I guess is the best way to put it. Travolta has a horniness.
I'm
not saying that's a good thing.
I think Dana Barrett would disagree. He charmed the pants off of her. He made her levitate.
I have to Google that now. Okay.
Sleeps above the covers.
I believe it's Sigourney Weaver's character.
Oh, that's right. Excuse me.
3 feet above the covers.
Okay.
But Griffin, do you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
Travolta's dirty, but I'm not saying that's a good thing. I think we are agreed that that's not quite the right energy.
Well, I think that's a problem with this movie is like Travolta still is borderline enough of a regular sex symbol that when women constantly turn their heads and are drawn to him inexplicably in this movie, it isn't as funny as if it were like slovenly Bill Murray chain smoking, pouring sugar in his coffee, and suddenly everyone was going like, "Who is that?"
I think that's accurate, right? Like,
or like
it would be
like a Brian Dennehy.
I mean,
oh
Dennehy.
My God.
Look, Dennehy in this movie, I'd watch it.
He would slay.
John Goodman is Michael.
But
I'd watch it.
That's the problem is I think he's weird in all the wrong ways and he's charming in all the wrong ways.
This is what's complicated about it, Griffin, and you're right. It's like, yes, John Travolta has at this point aged beyond marquee idol romantic lead. Like it's not like Pulp Fiction, Get Shorty. Like in these movies are not he's, a romantic lead.
He still gets the leading lady in his films, but they're not romances first and foremost.
Right, exactly. But he's still a little too in that for it to be weird that I don't know.
Right, it has to be a guy like Nicholson. I'm not saying it should be Nicholson, but that Nicholson power of like, this guy inexplicably became a sex symbol.
Nicolas Cage. We're talking. Maybe they got the wrong face-off guy.
It's better because you need that contrast for like, I would not go for it.
Well, it's like, him in Moonstruck is kind of like the chaotic energy, but he's still somehow very charming.
Yeah. And I want to hear what David's going to say, but I just want to quickly, working off of what you said, Ange, pitch a clean face-off. You have Nicolas Cage do Michael. You have John Travolta do City of Angels.
Ooh,
is that not a better fit for both? Is that not better for both?
For both. Should this be a new thing, like face-offs, where we like, let's take 2 movies from the same year-ish?
Yes.
And like that didn't work and see if switching the leads does anything?
I think this is a fun segment. Who are you going to propose, David?
I think an internal face-off. Travolta should play the magazine editor and Hoskins should play the angel.
I think that's a great pitch.
Because I think Travolta could have fun with, 10, 15 minutes of, newspaper jerk, right? Like, weirdo.
Yep.
Like truly DeVito as Michael, like someone where it's like, ooh.
The weirdest thing about Get Shorty, a movie I really like, is that DeVito plays someone who is basically the biggest movie star in the world. And I love Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
Because like the joke in the book is that he's short. Sure. But that's a joke about Tom Cruise. Like they're not saying that he's 5 feet tall, even on a good day in sneakers. Like it's just like a crazy overcorrection where they're like, what's the deal? He's short? Call Danny DeVito.
That's
but
funny.
David, even like an internal face-off, I'm not saying he's the ideal casting, but I think this movie works better if William Hurt plays Michael and Travolta plays the editor.
I considered that.
You talk about what's wrong with the casting of both of these guys.
Yeah.
Travolta's a little too conventionally charming and not self-aware of how he's weird. William Hurt is a guy where anytime a woman ends up with William Hurt in a movie, you're like, that feels like a prison sentence. Like, I can tell this guy's difficult. You're never going to fully melt that heart, right?
Fair.
No, it's awful.
Right.
It's absolutely awful.
There's something about him that is just like very, very thorny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you can't pin the movie on you want to see them break each other down.
Yeah, because again, with Travolta, it just feels like movie star bullshit where it's like, put in the script, everyone loves me, where it's like, that actually is the script and what's supposed to be genuinely funny about it.
Right. That
but
they shouldn't love him.
It's almost there.
But he has to be like, put in the script that I specifically am not letting Andie MacDowell love me.
I
put a block on you. I put a block on you.
I blocked you.
Oh my God. Oh, speaking of casting what ifs, for Groundhog Day, who did Andie MacDowell's role almost go to? Tori Amos.
Really?
Tori
I didn't know that.
Amos.
That is fucking wild.
That is some wild shit.
Yeah.
Now, imagine this movie with Tori Amos instead.
Yeah, I can't do that. You're saying, what if Tori Amos, it was a sliding door scenario,
Yeah, Tori Amos and Magic Mike XXL.
She would have ended up getting every Andie MacDowell role.
Tori Amos as a country western singer-songwriter, that's interesting. And to me, this is my favorite part of this movie, is Andie MacDowell's her hobby.
Yes.
Writing country western songs, specifically that genre, is her hobby.
She is a dog trainer who wants to get hired as a decoy by a tabloid, but secretly...
It's too much business.
So much
business. A lot of business.
Kevin, I'm with you. I think the country writer thing is cute. There's a version of that you could make really, really cute.
I love it.
But I'm just too tripped up by trying to figure out wait, the dog trainer thing and how did she even get wrapped up in a tabloid? I can't even get to when she takes out her fucking notebook and I expect her to be well, I'm a reporter.
She doesn't even have treats in her pockets. She's no expert. She doesn't know from
dog training.
That's a great point. This is the most scathing thing I can say about this movie. A movie that I probably give a gentleman's 6. Okay,
I gave it a 6. I wavered between 5 and 6, but I think I gave it a 6. The middle was enough.
The things I like in it, I like enough to give it a 6. The most scathing thing I can say about this movie is this should not be a movie where I need to consult the Wikipedia page while I'm watching it to figure out the plot. And
this is not Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Exactly.
That is how I felt. And that is a great reference, Kevin, because that is the ultimate movie where you're did I miss 20 minutes? Is there? I love that movie.
And that's the thing. With Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, you can't hold it against the movie. You're
supposed to be in that headspace.
Totally.
Right, yeah.
But I should not have to reopen the Michael tab 4 times to go okay, so that was in the first scene. Okay.
Good.
Well, that's the thing. There's that one scene where she's talking to the dogs that feels kind of just cute and tossed off.
I didn't think it was
Nora
a plot
Ephron
point.
Is this is a plot linchpin. This isn't a point. This is the biggest breadcrumb.
Even the pie runner, I thought I missed a scene where they're hunting for pie all the time, which I do relate to a lot. We did do Big Little Pies, the watch party last summer, back when HBO had original programming coming out. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten familiar with pie and hunting for the best ones, but I didn't understand why the characters in this movie were. But delighted when Andie MacDowell did write and sing a song about pie, apple, pumpkin, cherry, banana cream. This is my favorite part of the movie.
But then it's also disappointing when you're oh, that's a runner merely to set up William Hurt and Andie MacDowell fucking.
But the pie stuff?
Right? Because it was he was hunting for pie so that he could get her in the place to sing a song about pies.
But yeah, I guess. Oh,
because that's the thing. He makes the 2 promises. He's you promise me that you'll apologize to William Hurt, and you promise me that you'll sing to Andie MacDowell. And that's the moment when he calls out when they're eating the pies. And he says, you have to sing now.
Yeah.
I'm
not crazy for saying this, right? They don't have any chemistry.
Well,
Andie and Will.
There is one scene, if I can even call it in that movie. There's one scene of this movie where I give all credit to Nora Ephron that I think is borderline transcendent in just her direction. And it is the scene that mostly plays as an unbroken 2-minute oneer.
Oh, on the stairwell at the motel.
Yes.
That scene's good.
I think they fundamentally do not have a lot of chemistry.
They don't have a lot of chemistry even in that scene. It's a well done scene.
That scene is a masterpiece of blocking and of camera movement.
Yes, 100%. And I like the dialogue about oh, your room's directly above my room. The way he says that it's a flirt, even though you're what? But you know what I mean?
It's incredibly well written. And it's they come out of the honky tonk bar, which is right next to the motel they're staying at. There's a little bit of reverse shot as they're saying goodnight to each other. And then it moves to this shot from behind William Hurt's head as he starts to walk up the stairs. Then he grabs her hand and kisses her on the cheek. Or it's the other way around, right? He's on the ground and she's walking up the stairs.
I believe that's right, yes.
They kiss on the cheek and then she continues walking up the stairs, but she doesn't let go of his hand.
Yes.
Which is really, it's good fucking Lubitsch touch shit. And then she walks back down. They kiss again. that she keeps walking, and it's just like this tension of it until they start going up the stairs together. And that I was like, this is a very good depiction of two people in a weird circumstance making a spur of the moment decision to sleep together. It is not the scene that sells me on them being together for the rest of their lives.
Lubitsch is a good reference. That's who I'm maybe thinking of even more than like, Hope and Crosby. Like that twist of supernatural to like a sort of Battle of the Sexes type movie. Like I get that.
Right. But when people talk about the Lubitsch touch, they talk about like that sort of like incredibly concise characterization that also functions as moving the story forward, that also is charming and humorous, and that usually is entirely visual or behavioral.
Right.
It's not the characters explaining themselves. And that scene is like a perfect distillation of that, and a thing that I think she was good at doing. But I was more into like, oh, look, they're falling backwards into this weird affair. This might sort of change both of them a little bit. And I felt so deflated the moment I find out, no, this is his heaven-sent mission.
Well, that's the problem. It kills the chemistry, not that it really exists anyway.
Right.
Because then the movie's just about like, well, this has been ordained by God or Michael or whoever, right? Like, so that's why it's happening, because it's like some divine command.
We love a God-ordained romance. That's my favorite kind of love stories, when God wants two people to come together. When I hear that at weddings, I'm like, yes, this will work.
He has some
I can
line.
Think of nothing hotter.
He has some line where he's like the toughest challenge, melting the world's iciest heart. Like the man who no longer knew how to love. Like he frames it like it was like he was the Grinch, as if he was like an iconic Scrooge level. Like, and I don't think William Hurt is playing the level of asshole where you're like, there's no way this guy could ever fall in love. I think he's playing classic mild asshole William Hurt.
Or it's
very
like,
mild asshole.
Yeah.
And the crucial, so when early on, Michael is like, I'm going to need you to apologize, and you're going to have to do it, right? Like he makes that like sort of compact.
Another kind of nice scene.
In prison.
I like that scene. I really like that scene. But right, then in the prison scene, like, I don't know, like there's something about the energies. Like she's suddenly upset in a way where I'm like, I guess I get why. And he's suddenly being really jerky in a way that I'm like, this hasn't really been his vibe up until now. He's more over it than an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even though I like the choreography of that scene, and I like the idea of like, there's going to be a pivotal moment where you're going to need to stop being such a jerk. I just feel like she doesn't lay the groundwork for it right or something.
No.
I don't know.
No, and as you said, I got excited when he says, at some point, I'm going to ask you to apologize. Like that is a move. I
love that.
That gives me a lot of confidence in a movie, because I go like, oh my God, the writer is calling their shot. They're setting up the fucking Rube Goldberg machine in a good way to later pay off beautifully.
Right, and I'm leaning in. I'm like, ooh, what's that? What's that going to be?
How is that going to be recontextualized? Right.
And it's a good little mystery for a rom-com. Like rather than, I don't know, like we have to figure out who's behind the chemical spills. Like it's just like, ooh, he's going to need to apologize.
But like, Kevin, you've gone back to your John Travolta as Moose in the Fanatic Zoom background.
I have, yes.
But on your real wall, you have a framed illustration of Paddington the Bear.
And we're talking about setups and payoffs.
Well, but also certainly that's a perfect setup payoff movie, but also Paddington is like a perfect example of a genre of film I love a lot, which is one character quietly changes everything and everyone they come into contact with.
Yes, but it feels organic. It doesn't feel like manipulated.
And that's like
true in both Paddingtons, but really true in the first one. Like, right? Like the whole block is changing because of him, and
right. But that's what you want out of Michael. Like, that's the promise this movie is making, is here is this guy who seems like a slob, who seems like no conventional angel we've ever seen.
Oh, man. I don't know how many comparisons I want to make. I mean, like, is marmalade his Frosted Flakes with sugar and more sugar? Like, he puts it in ketchup at one point. He puts sugar on French fries at one point.
It's overdoing the bit.
Right. You want it to be, this guy seems like he's a piece of shit. Like, this guy is like a drunk, he's smoking. He's like, a horn dog. But slowly but surely, he quietly touches everyone, every life that he encounters upon the way. And instead, it's just like something about how a tunnel vision this movie becomes at the end, to the extent that like when Sparky gets hit by the truck and then Andie MacDowell divulges all of the plot twists,
by the way. Yes.
Right. And then William Hurt demands that Michael save Sparky, and he says that's not my area, and Hurt with all the emotional passion and intensity of I love you, wife, says, no, you have to bring him back to life.
Do it.
Do it.
It's true. He's just not into it. What is this about her 90s Hurt?
And then Michael does it, but it takes so much power out of him that
he starts shedding his little feathers from his wings.
And he just wants to see the Sears Tower, which I think is a line I missed or something, because it becomes very important. And I was like, wait, I didn't realize he was that focused on the Sears Tower.
Well, he wants to see big stuff, and that's the biggest building.
That's the part Ben really connected with in the movie. Is him going to the big ball of twine. Ben's just at home like,
But then they get to Chicago. They get to Chicago, the biggest nonstick pan.
Oh, yeah, that
one was a weird one. That one's very niche. Like, I've heard of the biggest ball of twine.
Non-stick?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Also, those old guys are really in it for it at that moment where he's just like going off about the battle of hell.
When he's talking about throwing Satan out of heaven, and the old guys are like, "Oh, okay, I love that. I think that's great."
No, it's fun stuff. But once he's in the field and is like, I don't have much longer, it takes 3 minutes to get to Chicago. Suddenly they're like rapid speed in Chicago. He's dying outside the Sears Tower.
Yeah. And then the movie, and I'm like, okay, is the movie over? Like, have they all learned a lesson? And the movie's
no.
Like 10 more minutes. And I'm like, I don't need the...
But not before we get to my second favorite part of the movie. My first favorite part is the song in which Andie MacDowell does sing about all her 16 ex-husbands or however many, which I thought that was going to be the thing, is that, they're fake and she's being a con lady in a different way, with all these like outlandish stories about his tires was bald and so was he, but it's actually all true, and she put him in the song. My second favorite scene, of course, is when William Hurt goes out for a nice pasta dinner by himself. And who should be his waiter in the restaurant?
Yes.
Angel have pasta. Mr. Toby Ziegler himself,
who maybe like should be like I don't know, like indicted by the like anti-Italian disparagement committee or whatever. You know what I mean? Like whatever the sort of like. Like where I'm just like, Richard, I get the joke, but why are you the one doing this? I love Richard Schiff.
He is playing the illustration on the pizza box.
It is outrageous. And because I think, and it's in beardless Richard Schiff,
a weird look.
We've come to find out with people with beards and non-beards during quarantine, myself included, beardless Richard Schiff is about 49% smarmier than bearded Richard Schiff.
It's
so you almost feel the contempt he might have for the man on the Italian pizza box when he's doing an impression of him.
I also just think Schiff is one of those guys who is so thoroughly Jewish. You can't suddenly put a different group on him.
The man played Toby Ziegler for a reason. Like, that character is not called, Toby Jones. It would be funny if he played Toby Jones.
He's not named Tony Linguini.
Toby Bonini.
Can I just say something about the sugar before I forget? I just want to complain about that.
Sure.
Okay?
Please.
Griffin.
Yeah.
Michael. He likes to smoke cigarettes. He likes to get his rocks off.
Okay, come on.
Yeah.
He likes to indulge in food. Pie, French fries, I don't know, whatever he's eating. So the bit is, he's an indulgent guy. He's sort of hedonistic. He enjoys pleasure, right? No one enjoys Frosted Flakes with a whole, like a cup of sugar added. It's not like I'm every day like, what I really want is a cup of Frosted Flakes with sugar piled on top.
It's a hat on a hat, my friend.
It's like 4 hats on a hat.
Absolutely. And he is
it's like a sombrero on a hat.
It's lids. It's the lid store on a hat.
But here's the fix. If it was Pixie Sticks and he was pouring it all over, then I'm on board.
Absolutely.
Here's what you do, guys. Gang, I mean, for all of us doing cereal during this time, grape nuts with honey drizzled and a nice unsweetened vanilla almond milk, terrific treat.
Sounds classy. Sounds very classy.
I love
Griffin,
I agree with you. This is what I was going to say. He is putting so much sugar on that cereal that he is essentially eating spoonfuls of sugar, which I think all of us learned as a child is not fun. Like, it has a bad texture. It doesn't taste good.
Right, exactly.
Right.
You're like, why don't I just cut out the middleman? Why don't I just eat sugar? And then you're like, oh, I get this.
When he's introduced eating that much sugar, like essentially just fucking mainlining sugar, I was like, it's going to be revealed that it's part of like something of his physiology. Like, he needs it to survive. There's some weird chemical reaction because of his wings or whatever. And instead it's just supposed to be, if you were an angel, wouldn't you do that? Which I don't relate to.
Or maybe they cut out a scene where he was diagnosed with diabetes.
Well, maybe they cut out a scene where he's like, my fucking powers come from sugar.
Well,
like, I need to recharge.
Well, gang, I want to be clear. And especially, is this movie rated PG or PG-13? It is
was
PG.
it PG or PG-13? I can't.
PG.
Yeah, PG.
So, okay, it is a PG movie, and right before little Sparky does get run over by a truck in the movie,
Which he
him
does,
and Michael
and then he's
have
dead.
he absolutely does. But him and Michael do have a tender moment sitting on like a bench or something in a field. And he turns to Sparky, and at one point he does say, well, you can never have too much sugar. Which, as a message in a PG movie, I can't sign off on.
No,
I don't think that's great.
Absolutely. The film should be rated R.
And if you look at the diabetes trends nationally, in comparison to the year that the movie Michael came out, there was a huge spike.
Oh, you
Michael
think this
might have
movie's
doomed a
responsible?
generation. In the same way that Babe made kids go vegan, Michael made kids.
But you know how movies now, it's like PG-13 contains violence, smoking, cigarette use?
Yeah.
Like, what if it was like rated R, excessive sugar consumption?
I can tell you one person who'd love this movie.
Michelle Obama would love that.
No, I look, Kevin, you're being sarcastic. She would hate this. You know who would love this movie? Edgar.
Well, that's the other thing. And that movie is after this, so I can't hold this
Men in Black the following year. He's all about sugar water.
It's the only thing I can think about when he's piling that sugar on. I'm like, this is Edgar's bit, and when he does it, it's menacing, and it works way better.
Yes. The other thing it makes me think of is Elf, where the bit is he's a lunatic from a children's book. Like, who would eat maple syrup on pasta? Right.
But combining, like, I love smoking and boning down with, I also love spoonfuls of sugar.
I was going to say, like, smoking, drinking, boning are all sort of in the same pyramid. And then sugar is something in left field. Like, if it was just he's eating a lot, like the guy orders a lot of food.
That's fine.
He's a glutton.
That's fine.
That tracks for me.
Exactly.
But he wants
he likes to fight.
And water.
That's the vibe. The vibe of the early scenes, you're like, is he not even going to be charming? Like, is he just going to be completely bizarre?
Right.
And then after 2 weird scenes, then he sort of starts to be charming.
I kept waiting for them to be like, oh, his wings run on sugar.
That would have been cool.
Like, one of them breaks off and someone's like, oh, it tastes like
sugar. But they also explain that he smells like cookies, but to different people, they think he smells like different things, like butterscotch.
I guess he smells like whatever you like,
Whatever the woman desires is what he smells like.
Yeah. I do think there is kind of, in the interminable last 10 or 12 minutes of this movie.
Interminable.
There's that thing where, like,
pasta.
William
Angel hair pasta.
And then Andie MacDowell's asking for angel food cake, and they're like, this is a Dunkin' Donuts. We don't have angel food cake.
I think it's a Starbucks. It's an early Starbucks.
You're right.
It is an early Starbucks.
Apron.
Yes, you can see the logo.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then there's that thing where Pastorelli and Hurt meet at the bar, and Pastorelli is like, that was wild, right? And Hurt's like, didn't happen, fundamentally didn't happen. Didn't happen.
Right.
I love that.
And Pastorelli's like, how do you explain it? What happened to your jacket? Where were we for 2 weeks? Hurt's like, absolutely not, didn't happen. I love you, wife. And then he says,
the planet core.
But then he says that thing of like, look, if angels exist, I'm going to step outside, and you see the sneak preview of what he's describing, that he steps off the L train,
that
that's
he walks, so strange,
that he has the sudden instinct to turn the other way, then a car gets a flat tire, and it's the woman of his dreams.
Yeah.
And then The rest of the scene plays out at the bar. Then he gets on the train. You also have that moment where he's at the train station and there's the Michelangelo exhibit, and it looks like Michael
Angel.
You get it? But
I didn't get it, actually. Can you explain it to me?
Sure. So the film is called Michael.
Okay.
And Michael is an angel.
Oh.
The words Michael and angel are both contained in the name Michelangelo.
But what does this have to do with turtles that like pizza? I just don't get it.
Spelled very differently.
Turtles.
I wish they had, because Andie MacDowell does like hold her little fingies up to the fingies of the angel.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for more, like, for her to say Michael, Angel, and I did want her to say, "Oh, I did."
Oh,
oh,
just like Griffin in the box office game.
Oh.
It's just weird.
But then he gets off the train. He turns the other way. The flat tire hits. It's two bearded men. He scoffs at the universe. How silly for me to believe. But then he sees Michael doing a little Travolta dance, chain smoking with the jacket, his classic semi-mullet hairdo.
What a hairdo.
He's got the Richard Lewis. Kevin has changed his background to Ricky Schiff at the Italian restaurant. But it's like a minute and a half of him following Michael until he literally bumps into Andie MacDowell, and then they fully admit that they're in love with each other and they want to get married.
They want to get married.
And then you see Michael with Edith Bunker being like, "This was my toughest assignment. Yeah, look at me, I pulled it off."
Right.
And
then they do a dance.
They do a dance in the street, but is she supposed to also have been an angel, or is he just hanging out with the ghost?
Here's how I take it. And it's not like this is explained.
Sure.
His angel chits or whatever have been used up. But she is so great or whatever, was part of his assignment in some way, that she is now like an angel in training. And he's like only along for the ride as like her mentor, her like, her like driving teacher, essentially.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of a sweet idea, but also it is weird for how much this movie is specifically about Michael, a very specific archangel who has such an epic story, how he essentially is revealed to just sort of be Clarabelle from like It's a Wonderful Life, and he's just dealing with like very small human concerns.
And like, I like that line. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to speak. There's that line where he's like, you can't like mess with the fundamental nature of the world or something. Like there's some line where he kind of does some world building where he's like, you can do little miracles. You can't do big stuff.
It's basically like Jesus logic with some of it, where it's like, well, Jesus can do water to wine, he can do fishes and loaves, but listen, if you want to like turn back time or something, or like genie rules in Aladdin, I can't make someone fall in love. I can just set up the pieces. Right.
He's like, mostly I try and lead by example. Sure, I can do a little magic. It's just, but the movie, maybe because Efron thinks it shouldn't be too like, I don't know, fantasy heavy or whatever, but like it doesn't really want to get into it.
No.
What is the most interesting thing about this to Nora? What does she love about this?
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't figure it out.
I mean, as you said, she loves journalists, and I think maybe just the hook of it is people who write fake stories for a sensational tabloid who come across a real miracle, but it is not how they would imagine it to be. I think if you hear it described that way, you go, that sounds like a Nora Ephron movie.
Sure.
Okay. I have found an article by the great Rachel Handler on Vulture titled Andie MacDowell Answers Every Question We Have About Michael.
Thank fucking.
So I'm going to see if, as we wrap up, I'm just going to see if there are any weird tidbits that she has about making Michael, the largely dismissed Nora Ephron film. All right, and let's see. I was a fan of Nora Ephron, loved the script, thought it was magical. She was cast really early. She sang in her audition, which was crucial.
Cool.
Now they didn't dub over her voice. She does sing, and she has an Emma Stone in La La Land quality voice.
Yeah, she has a pretty good voice.
She says like, I don't think of myself as a singer, but I think I did a good job singing in the audition.
Pumpkin, cherry, apple.
Travolta, a huge person, takes up the room, very generous, had his own cook and would always be offering to feed you. Wow. So it seems like kind of like, I don't know, big boisterous energy type, right? Like, I don't know. Do you remember if he was really eating the sugar? Probably sounds like something he would have done. He's that kind of actor, right? So
I love that's his version of Tom Cruise being like, I really hung off an airplane. Is Travolta's like, I really ate that much sugar for Michael.
Gang, we got to the most important question, though. Sorry to scoop you, David. It does say, do you remember the lyrics to the Pie song?
Wow.
And she does say, I can sing the Pie song, but I'm not going to do it, but I can do it. I've had people ask me to sing the Pie song, and I will sing the Pie song if someone asks me on the street to sing the Pie song, but I'm not going to stay here on the phone and sing the Pie song, but I promise you, I can.
That does sound, I can imagine exactly Andie MacDowell answering that question.
We did talk about Carla Gugino showing up for a hot second, too.
She looking great.
Looking great. Joey Lauren Adams,
looking the
too?
Same.
Yes.
Joey Lauren Adams, yeah, Carla Gugino, I always struggle with her last name. She's someone who really is unchanged, like in a sort of frightening way. Like
here's another thing.
It's scary.
I feel like people are always surprised by this, but when I'm asked this question, Carla Gugino is the actor career I would most want.
Oh, yeah. Has worked with all kinds of great directors, memorable, well-liked.
Has just done everything. Has been in every type of genre, every size role, every size budget, worked with so many great people. She's always fucking good. She can be in a family comedy or an action film or a drama, do TV, do stage, do movies. And I also just feel like she is at the perfect level of like established, but not famous enough where she becomes a celebrity over an actor.
Right.
She's got the perfect career, if you ask me.
Some other... I agree with you. I love her. I'd love to see her in something right now.
She rolls.
Andie says Nora, at the time she was directing, was forced to be in touch with her masculine side, was kind of intimidating. She's sort of talking about how Meryl said she was sort of an intimidating person to work with. And Andie's like, I think it's sort of like a reverse sexism thing of like... She had to be tough because, there was such a spotlight on a female director at that point.
Makes a lot of sense.
Makes a lot of sense. She, I don't know. She doesn't really, the Pie answer is the big
She's
answer.
not answering our big questions, which is, why does this movie exist?
Okay, no. We have a break here. I have scrolled down and she does sing the Pie song in the interview.
Wow.
She does. But like in general, her take seems to be like, I think it's a sweet movie and I think that's great. Like, she's definitely not like, it's a weird one. Like she's not like just, yeah.
Well, how can you even tell? I mean, if you're an actor and that stuff, how objective is Andie MacDowell about like, I think Groundhog Day worked because of these X factors. And I think Michael was a little off because of the cast. Like, right? Like, she's impossible to be objective.
And why wouldn't you be?
Now, let's play the box office game for this movie that was a big hit.
All right, so this movie came out Christmas time, 96. And that makes sense because Sleepless in Seattle had been such a huge hit. It was a summer movie. Yeah. But this is an Angel movie, right? Like it's a PG movie, so it makes sense that the studio, which is what, New Line, I think?
Well, it was Turner and New Line released it.
Right,
yeah.
Right. That they're like, Christmas. This is a Christmas family movie.
And it's Travolta's having this blockbuster year.
So it's number one.
Good on him.
It opened to number one on December 27th. Very impressive in my opinion.
Very impressive, yeah.
And it grosses $27 million over the holiday weekend. It makes 95 total.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Good. I can't imagine. What do you think it costs? Like 40?
40?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, right. Like, I think it was like a very robust hit for them.
Yes.
Number two, Griffin. It's a movie we've discussed on the podcast.
We've covered it with an episode.
We have. Think Christmas 96, baby.
It's Jerry Maguire?
It's Jerry Maguire.
Just trucking.
Right, Jerry Ma-fucking-Guire.
So Scientology is just owning the box office this weekend.
That's a fair
peak year.
Yeah.
Do you think they're just like rubbing their hands together in the Christmas of 96? Yeah. They're like, we are everywhere.
Number 3 is For Richer or Poorer with Kirstie Alley.
Number 4 is a Beck biopic? I'm trying to think of Scientologists. Giovanni Ribisi?
Swim Fan with Eliza Dushku.
Oh, yes. No, Erica Christensen, right?
Erica Christensen.
Yes.
Oh,
is she a Scientologist?
The other way around.
Yeah.
Yes, she is. No Christensen is. Dushku is not.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That we know of.
Number 3, Griffin, it's a Thanksgiving release, so it's been out for 5 weeks. It's made $104 million. It's another family movie.
So you'd say it's a grower, not a shower.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's what I usually say about family movies.
We usually say about family films, it's a grower, not a shower.
Well, you know what? Now I want to check its multiplier to see if it was a grower or a shower. I mean, it opened to 33. It's at 104 after 5 weeks. I'd say it was a bit of a shower.
What does it end up at? What's the final total? What's the final?
The final
domestic total
for this film was $304 million worldwide.
Wow. Is it live action or animated?
Live action.
Oh, but with an
But
asterisk?
there's a tone to the way I said that.
Yeah. Okay. What was the other thing you were about to say about it?
It was one of those things where I remember even as I was, 10 when it came out, I saw it in theaters with my family. Even as a kid, I knew like, oh, well, this casting is a fucking grand slam. Like,
was it Jumanji?
Of course. No, although, believe me, I was very excited for Jumanji.
Yeah. So it was like this actor playing this role was just money in the bank.
Interesting.
Correct. Actress.
Oh, is it 101 Dalmatians?
That's right.
Yeah. See, this is what's weird. You're saying this is like the difference of like 3 years between our ages.
At this age, it's a big deal. Yeah.
Have you guys seen the cut of 101 Dalmatians where Andie MacDowell dubs over Glenn Close as Cruella DeVille? It's weird. I gotta get those dogs.
I want those
I gotta have that skin.
Puppies.
Furry, puppy, slobber.
See, the difference for me, David, is you were like, that's slam dunk Glenn Close as Cruella DeVille.
Right.
And for me, in the following years, I was like, oh, it's nice to see Cruella DeVille working. Like, this was my first impression of Glenn Close.
But, like, don't you think it's funny that me at 10 years old, and obviously I was a little nerd about movies, but even I knew through cultural osmosis, like, oh, well, Glenn Close famously great at playing, like, kind of scary people, like scary ladies. Like,
That's funny.
Fatal Attraction, Dangerous Liaison. Like, she is the lady for, like, to play an Iron Lady.
I remember feeling that way when I was, like, 5 years old, and I saw the VHS cover for Popeye. I was like, they're 2 for 2. Robin and Duvall?
Oh my God.
It's fair. It's fair.
Yeah.
What a weird. We got to talk about that movie.
We got him.
Popeye?
Right, okay.
Yeah.
100. One question, Griff. You've seen 101 Dalmatians.
I have.
The remake. Does she die at the end? What happens to her at the end? Because in the animated film, it's really scary when she's driving, remember? And the car goes over the bridge. And
that
that's
is
the last
scary.
you see of her.
Oh,
Very scary.
No, she goes to jail because there's a sequel.
Right.
102 Dalmatians.
Of course, right. I forgot there's a sequel, which I
believe,
also saw.
I believe it starts with a jailbreak.
Yeah, well, there you go.
That's
I remember
awesome.
that Gerard Depardieu is in it.
Absolutely, he is.
Yeah.
In 101, does she at some point like fall in not tar, but like I feel like she kind of gets like tarred and feathered in a way.
There's a sliming, which I feel like was just absolutely paramount in the 90s for a kids movie. It's like someone's got to get slimed.
Some gross substance has to fall out of a bucket and onto the.
You got to get gooped.
You gotta
get gooped. Paul Giamatti and Big Little, what's it called?
Big Fat Liar.
Big Fat Liar.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's
blue.
right. Frankie Muniz.
All right.
No, you're
Number
thinking
4.
of Bride Wars, Griffin.
I'm joking.
My
I'm
hair is
combining
blue.
the two. I'm combining the two.
He's going off the Bride War.
Hell yeah.
Ben, number 4 at the box office. And I feel like for some reason, Griffin, we've discussed a lot of movies in this range because Mars Attack is number 8.
Wow.
Obviously, we've talked about Jerry Maguire. I feel like there's another movie coming up. Maybe like we've been in this area a lot. Number
96
4
Holidays,
is a movie.
Big Time for tours.
It had been number 1 the previous week. Ben, I'm sure you were there in theaters. If
so it's
not,
a big
you were
drop.
Big drop.
Okay.
I mean, it's actually only a 50% drop, but definitely front loaded.
Is it a Steven Seagal film?
No. I mean, I just think that even at this age, Ben, you were like, I'm there. I don't know. Maybe you caught this on video.
Action or comedy?
Animated.
Oh, animated.
Oh, we've talked about this because it's so weird that this came out at this time of year.
It's so weird that it's a Christmas movie.
Beavis and Butthead Take America.
Of course.
Comes out the weekend before Christmas.
That so weird.
So
that
weird.
They were like, Jerry Maguire, I get it. Michael, I get it. 101 Dalmatians, absolutely. And then Beavis and Butthead Do America, which is
right. It's Do America. Yeah.
And the number 5 movie, which has been out for 2 weeks, has made $21 million, but is going to hold so extraordinarily well that it will make $103 million, despite opening to only 6.
Is it a Best Picture play? Is it an Oscar play?
No. But it's such a huge hit that there's a sequel the next year, even though it came out in December.
Whoa.
It's one of those rare films where the sequel came out less than 1 year after the original.
It's not Ace Ventura.
Like we were discussing.
It's not a Jim Carrey.
No. It's the revival of a genre. It's a crucial moment for a genre coming back.
Oh, it's Scream.
Scream.
Oh.
Right, where Scream 2 comes out like 11 months later.
Scream 2 came out 11 months later.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Legendary performance from fellow Pasadena, California resident Shaggy.
Oh.
Like zoinks, I'm the killer. Man, them choosing Will Forte and Scoob over him
it's rude. It's actually rude.
I was about to say, this will come out later, but are we all pumped for Scoob? It's Scoob's opening day.
Oh, yeah? Oh, is that today? Oh, I got to do the Scoob, the TikTok dance. That's a real thing that's trending right now for some reason.
Here's what I'll say about Scoob. I am very excited for the fact that the existence of Scoob does not feel like it will prevent me from being able to sell my Scooby-Doo pitch one day.
Hey, Griffin, you're right.
I have a Scooby-Doo pitch.
It's going to come and go.
Yes. I have a Scooby-Doo pitch that I will tell you, Kevin, when we stop recording, that David got angry at how good it is.
It's so good. It's also just it's just devastatingly
It's money in the bank.
Obvious.
It's just devastatingly obvious. I'm not even saying I'm some brilliant artiste.
No, you are brilliant, but it is also just
the most commercial, obvious pitch of all time.
Wait, is it they take down Harvey Weinstein?
Yeah, God damn it.
And it's called #MeScoob?
God damn it, Kevin.
What?
Yes, that's my pitch. It's called Me Scoob.
I don't know.
I will say, Griff, I don't know if you know this, but I assume you do. I'm told that the movie is heavy on world building and universe, Hanna-Barbera universe shit. That Dick Dastardly is in it, and the fucking
Dynamo, Blue Falcon, Captain Caveman.
Yeah. The Blue Falcon guy is the lead character,
played by Mark Wahlberg. I think all of this works in my favor.
Yeah.
What?
Because I just feel like people are going to be absolutely no thanks. Please try again.
They were we want to do an animated cinematic universe. We want to treat it like Marvel and work as many different Hanna-Barbera characters into Scoob, and then from there be able to make 8 more films with different properties.
Shared universes don't work.
It's an origin story, but it's also a team-up movie.
Don't try and cram a shared universe down my throat in the first movie when I don't even know if I like them yet. Right? And it's get out of here.
My Scooby-Doo pitch is clean. And you know who else is clean? Kevin T. Porter, the cleanest guest.
I try to have good hygiene. I shower every day, even during this time.
You look great. You sound great. You're one of the best in the biz.
Hey.
And people should listen to all your podcasts.
Sure. Oh, if they want to, they can. They're allowed.
They should. I insist.
Wait, they're allowed?
I am sad that I never got David on Gilmore Guys. I didn't know that you were such a big Gilmore head. I feel sad about it whenever I hear your passing references
to
ASP.
Point. You should have put me on
this show.
Gilmore Guys, and the world is worse off for it, obviously. But I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I know. It sucks. I do feel like all those shows did become a blank check about Amy Sherman Palladino, but except for 15 episodes about 15 movies, it's 300 something about all her weird
thing.
Because I am
my favorite thing
with
about Gilmore Guys was that The Atlantic, and when I was working at The Atlantic, wrote an article about you guys. I don't know if you remember that. I think they talked to you. Yes, Kevin O'Keefe.
Kevin O'Keefe, yes.
And the headline was The Guys Who Love Gilmore Girls. Fine headline. And something went wrong with social, and so The Atlantic's social account, Twitter account, just tweeted The Guys Who Love Gilmore Girls with no link and no further explanation. And everyone was like, all right.
I know about that.
It was such a weird moment. It was very
That's
funny.
Incredible. That feels like a text bot or something.
It's just we can just
Twitter.
like
I love
go
that.
on.
That's amazing, though.
I'm listening.
No photo, no nothing.
And that's you with past guest friend of the show, Demi Adija. So people should listen to that if they haven't already.
That's right. I know. What a great man he is.
One of the greats. And you're one of the greats. And thank you so much for being on the show, Kevin.
Oh, my pleasure. I truly love you guys. Love the show. I think all four of you are terrific.
I'm very happy you and I got to hang out in person one time before that became illegal.
I know. And the work you guys are doing on this podcast for people listening right now, looking for a sense of normalcy and comfort, it is essential to some people. So I'll be an audience surrogate and encourage you in that sense.
That's nice
it's
of you
good
to
stuff,
say, and same to you.
Well, thank you very much. And I do plan to file my taxes this year as an essential worker because you said that.
Good. Now, I want all the blankies to go out to their balconies, wherever they are. And the day that this comes out, 8:15 Eastern Standard Time, clang together pots and pans, and then shout out your favorite kinds of pie in honor of the Blank Check podcast.
And don't finish until you hit
Kevin,
25 pies.
That's very nice of you. I
right.
personally will be flying a jumbo jet. I'll just be buzzing Cincinnati that day, I've decided. Just going to give Cincinnati a fucking haircut in a Dreamliner.
But you're also going to be skywriting all the pies you like.
It'll immediately just start to dissolve into the air, so it'll just look like mush. Like that happened over my neighborhood. Someone skywrote "Thank you, healthcare workers." Just immediately, it looked like blah blah blah. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
skywriting is one of the most laborious things for the least payoff that we can do.
Absolutely.
No,
it says
a text.
It says "Hubarb." I
love it.
Well, that's been our episode on Michael, a movie that very much exists. Tune in for next week when Nora does what she always does. She rebounds so fucking hard with You've Got Mail.
She rebounds right back. Oh.
Absolutely insane. And now Kevin has changed his background to a picture of Laura Dern crying. He's just speed rounding different Laura Dern.
It's a cavalcade. Oh, there's
photos.
Lady Gaga. She wants to get a look at us.
Giving the smile.
Sonic.
Mario Maker and Sonic.
I like that.
Vin Diesel, Tom Hanks. Mr. Bean. Man, Kevin's rolling deep on good Zoom backgrounds. Here's another plug. Why don't you Zoom Kevin? You get a lot of really good visual comedy.
This is good because it looks like Thoreau is hugging you. Oh.
Yeah.
It's actually hand out.
Yeah. He's actually this is a supersized.
I've seen that picture before.
Of
course, Bradley Cooper's The Elephant Man, where he just makes a funny face. Yeah, the picture where they give I guess Scientology gave Tom Cruise like a medal or something, and he gives this speech. It looks like he's running for president of the Olympics. Like it's so weird. He has this comically large medal around his neck.
Guys, I need to pee so badly. So thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Thanks to Ange Fraguda for co-producing this show. Rachel Jacobs for editing help. Thanks to Leigh Montgomery for our theme song. Joe Bowen and Pat Reynolds for our artwork. Go to blankies.red.com for some real nerdy shit. And patreon.com. It's Kendall Roy rapping is now the background. Patreon.com/Blank Check for Blank Check special features. And as always, I'm going to describe the next background. It is Ellen DeGeneres. What better way to end the episode?
Famous fictional character, Nice Ellen.
Nice Ellen, my favorite fictional character.
And the quote underneath it is the message we should all take with us. Because we should live how Ellen lives. Be kind to one another.
Thank you. Griffin, go pee. I just want to say one thing to you, Kevin, as the CEO of Quibi. I'm going to order you just switching up Zoom backgrounds for 6 minutes as a new show on Quibi.
Go for Kevin.
Okay.
You guys ready for this?
Oh, that's my girlfriend.
Ben's girlfriend.
Oh, I thought it was like, I don't know, like a cosplay thing or something.
Humble Brown.
Yeah.
Could be.
What if Ben's girlfriend was actually like a Mrs. Doubtfire?
I would love that.
Ben in a wig.
Hold on one second. I'm going to go get...
Wait, can I tell you a fun, good gossip celebrity thing?
Please.
Because you said Mrs. Doubtfire.
And now that we're recording.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm
this
sorry.
This won't make it into the episode. This
will be real quick, but my friend Nick is dating Karen Gillan. And we were playing Codenames over Zoom the other night. She only played for a little bit, and then she went into the other room to watch X Factor. And the whole time she was watching it, she laughed like Mrs. Doubtfire. She's like, ooh, hoo, hoo, at all the funny contestants on X Factor. It was very sweet.